listeners, and welcome to another episode of Current Events on Tap, a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project, where, like the drinks, the current events are on the house. And I am your host, Alex Kirsch, pragmatic, progressive, U.S. Army veteran, truck driver, gamer, and streamer. If this is your first time on the show, please do not forget to hit like, share, comment, and subscribe. We are currently streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, and the X platform, also known as Twitter. Now, the format for this show is very simple. I bring one or more guests onto the show. We talk beer or beverage of choice and current events of the week. Each person will discuss their beverage of choice. This hour, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, it does not matter. Then each person will cover two current events of their choosing. Then they give the current event, they give their assessment, then each person gets a chance to give their assessment, and then we're going to discuss it. Debate may be possible, but rest assured you're in a good faith zone, and you will get your chance to get your point across. The point of this space is for all of us to discuss the issues, what we think of it, and keep an open mind to what the other person has to say. And please remember to keep it within TOS. Without further ado, let's welcome our guest this evening, an old friend of the platform, Fresh Faces, New Ideas. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm happy to be back. Happy to, you're still doing this stuff. Always glad to chat.
I did take a little bit of a hiatus because, once I got into trucking, I didn't have much time for it. But, I'm still trucking, but I'm home every single day. I'm not gone for, days at a time, so... But
I feel you, man. I stopped when I started doing EMT work, so...
Gotcha.
I get you at the end of the day. It's tough.
Yeah, I remember when you was getting into the EMT stuff. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what kind of stuff you do?
Yeah. So I'm Fresh Faces, New Ideas. I did Twitch and YouTube. I think the YouTube stuff's still up. I think Twitch gets rid of your stuff if you haven't streamed in 2 weeks. So I don't know if any of that's still there. You can find it. It's 2-3 years old at this point. I did that for a while. I'm currently in EMT. I occasionally do podcasts like this. I've done some with Independent Thought with the Left Wing. Most notably, if you're looking to find me for stuff, you can find me on Twitter at Faces Ideas New. You can find me on the Productive Conversation podcast. I usually talk basketball. I know on Tuesday, whatever their tweet cap is, they're going to have me just recap the end of the season, and then we'll probably talk about the debate there. Fridays, if you listen to a shoutcast, you can find me on hold on. It's I totally blanked on what it is. It's
it's all right.
It's okay. I've been doing this for doing that one for 5 years. It's Jesus. Why can't I remember what it's called? It's Jazz and Politics. It's with Richard Gazer. He's the host of it. I do a 15-minute segment during it. So
right.
Hopefully the name of the podcast will come back to me. But other than that, yeah, I just kind of follow politics. I really got into it. Basically, after 9/11 I got into it, but I was 9, and then I stopped for basically up till 2016, and then I got back into it. And yeah, I went from a Bush Republican at 9 years old because I didn't know any better, and that was, what the people around me were, to a Bernie bro currently.
You gotcha. Yep. I gotta say, there are some things I like Bernie Sanders on. There are some things that I think he's very good about, I still think 2016 he kind of got ripped off, but whatevs. So, yeah, the last time I had you on, we talked about mental health, I think it was. So that was a few years ago. It was actually in 2021, I think it was. I know we
talked about Afghanistan at one point.
Yeah, we also talked about Afghanistan. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, let's talk about our beverages for the evening. So, what are you sipping on over there, buddy?
It's mug root beer. So I don't drink anymore, really.
That's okay.
Most 99% of the time I'm drinking water. The rest of the time it's mostly Gatorade because it is just unbearably hot most of the time, especially in these trucks. You probably have so we're not all of our trucks have AC, or even if they do, it's not great. Or when I'm playing basketball, it's a lot of Gatorade. So occasionally it's a root beer. It would have been a Dr. Pepper if I could find it, which somehow Dr. Pepper is the second most drank soda now. Which is crazy because they don't really have the same advertising budget of Coke and Pepsi, but it's fine. Yeah, that's what I'm drinking more.
Yeah, I get it. And like I always tell people, if there's nothing wrong with you don't want to drink alcoholic beverages, I just do just because it's something I like to do. I'm a big fan of mug root beer, but if you want to try a really good root beer, I highly recommend Henry Weinhardt's. It is so good. If you find
literally never heard of that.
If you find
is that
It's kind of like a craft one, but if you see it, it comes in bottles usually. If you see a Henry Weinhardt's, get it because it is so good. It's because it's cane sugar, not like high fructose corn syrup kind of deal. It's
sugar. There was a diner when I was growing up that did cane sugar root beer. That stuff is like
it is so good, and I can honestly tell you, like Henry Weinhardt's root beer is so good because like it's not like that overpowering sweetness. It's just the right amount. It's so good. I love it. Like I usually buy it, especially like on hot summer days, because believe it or not, Michigan has been getting ridiculously hot. That's where I live now, by the way. But it's so good. I highly recommend it to anybody that doesn't drink. And if you like root beer, that is the go-to for me, essentially. So, but tonight I am drinking a.
Oh, I remember the name of my podcast. It's Center Left Radio.
We'll say it again one more time.
It's called Center Left Radio. If you Google it, Center Left Radio, it'll come up. It's it's got both like podcasts and it has like a running 24-hour shoutcast on it.
Okay.
So usually on Fridays I'm doing that, and then I think he puts it up later that day or it goes up on the weekend.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. It's okay. I mean, I have the same problem, like where I know what I want to say, but it's like on the tip of my tongue, but I forget what the hell I was going to say.
It's because when I'm on it, I'm not introducing it, or like when I go onto my other stuff, I usually just use my Twitter handle, or the Production Conversations, because that's like what I know, like where people can find it. So I don't. I just blanked on the name, which is weird because like I've been doing it since after Parkland. Like that's how I met the guy who did it.
Excellent, awesome. I'm gonna have to talk to him, see if he's able for talking stuff too. So, so what I'm drinking tonight is a Rochester Mills, a Rochester Red. It is a Irish pub style red ale. First time having it. It's not bad. It's kind of hard to describe like what I would kind of compare it to. It's very particular, but it's got a very beautiful red color to it, though. I'm a big fan of like I like all the different kinds of beers, but I saw it looked interesting, so I thought I would just kind of give it a shot, though. So I usually, like I said, it's one of my most common things is I always talk about like why I drink beer. Normally, it's because after I was stationed in Germany, I became a bit of a beer snob. So I like trying different kinds of beers or other alcohols, but like normally 9 times out of 10, I'm usually gonna be drinking beer. If anytime I see a beer that I've never tried before, I'm going to give it a shot. And if I like it, I'll drink it. But like there was one I drank. It was a raspberry sour and it tasted like liquid ass. It was horrendous. Like it just, I like stuff that have like a nice smooth flavor to it. This stuff just tasted like liquid fucking ass, and don't ask me how I can reference that, but it's just what it is. But
some flavors you just know. Yeah. You just know.
Absolutely. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into our first topic, shall we? And this is something you and I both kind of agreed upon, and that is the debate between Trump and Biden, okay? So I'll put it like this, okay? I voted for Biden in 2020. I'm voting for him again this year, all right? Now, people are wondering, why would you vote for Biden? They gave me all kinds of kind of crap, right? Well, the thing is like when I watched the debate, now I didn't actually watch the debate when it happened live. I listened to it on my way into work, and I listened to it and when I was at work. And, it's just like, I'll be honest, Biden sounded very old, sounded very weak. He sounded very just, not all there at the times. But here's the thing, though. A lot of things when people are like, oh, yeah, he got his stats wrong. He said that he has the support of the Border Patrol. Those things are not true, of course, because the Border Patrol has even stated on their social media page that they have never supported Joe Biden, which is fair, right? Now, here's the thing. A lot of things he did talk about, like as far as infrastructure, as far as like Medicare, as far as like things like that, he actually was accurate upon it. And he was actually able to bring the receipts on this. The problem that he had, though, is he wasn't able to hit all of his points home. He just doesn't have like the charisma, and he doesn't have the ability to just kind of drive. That's not his style. Joe Biden's not much of an orator. Never has been, and he never will be. However, looking at the performance of Donald Trump, how anybody can vote for this guy is beyond me. The guy just talks like an absolute colossal moron. Let alone the fact that he always says the same thing. Now, since the last time you and I talked, I've done a great deal of research on Donald Trump. I've listened to multiple books about him, And the modus operandi of him is that he never says anything of substance. Now, this is not a big shock to anybody out there. But the thing is, though, he never talks about great achievements. He only says, we've done things that nobody ever thought possible. That's all he ever says. He never says anything. He never backs it up with sources. He never backs it up with numbers. He claimed to say, we had the world's greatest economy in the entire world, which is not true by any metric whatsoever. And, when people were on Twitter earlier asking me, it's like, okay, who had the world's greatest economy? It's like, I don't fucking know, but it definitely wasn't the United States, especially under Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing. When I'm looking at how the debate went as a whole, people are like wondering who won the debate. I say nobody won that debate as far as I'm concerned. While Biden was more factually accurate with his information, he just wasn't able to drive the point home, and he wasn't able to hold Trump accountable. Now, let's be fair. Moderators are supposed to hold their, the people, the contestants, the debaters accountable when they don't answer questions. On multiple occasions, Trump was asked things like, what are you going to do about child tax credit? He never answered the question once. He just went off on a gish gallop and talked about other things that didn't make any sense whatsoever. But that's just how Trump operates. He never answers questions directly. When he was asked about if he would accept the results of the election, it was a simple yes or no question. He just says, it's a free and fair election, then yes, absolutely. He continues to say that the election is going to be stolen. He thinks that it's going to be unfair when he has no proof of this whatsoever. From 2020 on, he has insisted that, mail-in voter ballots are going to be fraudulent. There's no proof to that whatsoever. All he does is lie. The entire time from start to finish, he lied. He also talked about things like, they talked about in Virginia where if a woman gives birth to a baby and they're going to decide whether they're going to kill the baby or not. That's not what happened. People need to understand. The reason why the governor said that was in place is in the event, right? God forbid, the mother gives birth to the baby. The baby is born with a condition that is going to cause the baby to have unnecessary suffering. Like whether it's like missing a lung, missing parts of his liver, missing parts of his body, vital organs and whatnot. They then have to decide what is the most humane thing to do. That's what the policy is about. It's not about killing the baby after it's born. But once again, all Donald Trump does is lie. But, however, CNN did not bother to hold him to account. They didn't bother to fact check him on that because they said they weren't going to do any fact checking that night. But my biggest problem is the fact that nobody really seemed to pay attention, and all people focused upon, like everybody was talking about like how Biden was just kind of mumbling and just, of course he sounded a little weak, but nobody was listening to what he was talking about. Nobody didn't bother to find out whether he was actually accurate. Like Biden's policies, now I understand that people are concerned that Biden is old. There's no secret to this. He is old, okay? He is 81 fucking years old, okay? But Trump is not exactly a spring chicken. The guy is 78 years old, for crying out loud. It's not exactly, the guy insists that he is in better shape than he was like 25 years ago, which is impossible because the guy has the horrible eating habit. All he does is eat McDonald's all day, every day. But everybody's concerned about like whether Biden has dementia or not. Now, before I turn it over to you, buddy, I've been around people that have dementia. Anybody that has dementia is not going to be able to talk like Joe Biden did. And people say, he had an earpiece in his ear. I don't know about you. I have auditory processing. If I'm having a conversation with you and I got Joe Sniffy in my ear telling me some things, I am not going to be able to keep focus. I will not be able to tell you what I'm going to get all jumbled up in the head. If somebody with dementia was going through that, they would not be able to keep focus whatsoever. At the end of the day, do I think Joe Biden did terribly? He could have definitely done better. I wouldn't say he did terribly. I just think that he just wasn't able to drive the points home. But to anybody says that Donald Trump did a great job, they are either a cultist or they're just full of shit. So why don't you go and give me your thoughts about the whole debate that took place on Thursday?
So there's actually a couple things. So I think it's fine. You just heard it audio, right? You didn't actually watch the visuals of it?
Yeah, I watched parts of it, yeah. I did watch the visuals.
So there's a few things to this. Like, you're right. Nobody won this debate. Everybody involved lost. Literally everybody involved. This was also a really not well watched debate. I think it had like incredibly poor numbers. So it is like the freak out for it is a little bit overdone. Now, there are certainly things Biden could have been done better, and I'll get to them in a minute. But the thing you need to recognize is that was Joe Biden at his worst. Like, it literally because he had a rally the day after, and he was way better. Now, granted, maybe it was talking off the prompter, but he sounded better. That was Trump at basically normal or his best. Now, a couple things that should have been happening. Joe Biden was apparently sick during this, and he very clearly, like, if you listen to him, didn't sound right. I think his campaign made a mistake of not preempting that. Like be like, look, his voice is fucked up because he has a cold. Like, that's not even just like that in itself, especially to start. You're like, okay, he's got something in his throat, drink some water and clear it, and then it didn't clear. Like, just saying, hey, he's got a cold, his voice is a little fucked up. I think that would have changed it. There was that one exchange where he just trailed off. That was really bad. But the problem is, this is not an election that's about facts. This is not an election about policy. This is a vibes election. Because if you talk to people how the economy is doing, they're all like, yeah, we're basically in a recession. And there's no statistical basis for this. Now, obviously, people are struggling. Housing costs are too high. There's just like a whole bunch of issues here and there that exist. But like the idea that we're in a recession when we have, like, we've had record low unemployment for like the last, I don't know, year and a half. I don't even know how long it's been this low. But it's a lot of vibe stuff. This idea that like Joe Biden is personally responsible for gas prices, even though if you actually follow what is happening, he's essentially broken OPEC's control over how gas prices function, because when he released all this oil from the Federal Reserve and then managed to buy it back, what he basically was telling future traders is anytime they try to spike it, which is what happened. They basically, after COVID, they basically didn't ramp up production, so that's why it spiked. He's like, yeah, if they ever do this again, I'm just going to release it and I'm going to crash all the futures. So he did that really effectively. Now, CNN, honestly, I don't understand why. Like, I get it. They're like, okay, I think the Trump campaign actually wanted them not to do any fact checking. That was the only way he would agree to it, which I guess is fine. You could just run a sticker on the bottom about it, not like having the moderators to do it, but at least ask a fucking follow up. Like, I think the maybe the grossest moment in the debate, and I think the one that really, like, maybe a more agile Biden would have picked up on is when they were talking about the Israel conflict, and he called them a Palestinian as like some type of like terrorist slur thing. Then they're using this a lot, and nobody said anything about it. Like, there was like talking about some of the things that he did. They asked him about because if you think of any policy that Trump is running on during this campaign, it's his mass deportation policy. Now, just to understand how incredibly destructive this single policy would be, there's about 4.5 million unregistered migrants working in the economy right now, and they would just be gone. So I don't know how you plan on a economy that's at like, what are we at, 3.5, 4? We're somewhere like 3.5 to 4 on unemployment. I don't know where you expect those 4.5 million jobs for. And that's just the jobs themselves. That's not all the other jobs that are connected to them, whether if they're farming, if they're truck drivers, if they're doing housing, like all the other things that would get cascade from that. Like, they asked him directly, how would you do this? And he didn't give any answer. And they're just like, yep, I guess we're moving on. Like, that's where it's really fucked up that with CNN. Like, why bother even having, like, if your moderators are going to do that, just replace them with AI. Just like, because all you had to do for an AI program was ask the question, say, and give it a built-in timer, and that's it. Like, there was no reason for Jake Tapper or Dana Bash to be there, because if you remember leading up to this, they spent the entire week doing two things. They spent the entire week saying Joe Biden was on drugs, which honestly, if he was, it was fucking NyQuil, and they gave it to him too goddamn early, and it kicked his ass, and that's why he sounded terrible. And two, saying how Jake Tapper and Dana Bash were unfair to Joe Biden, or unfair to Donald Trump, which, like, may have been true, but then it's a shit. So it's not like you're gonna. They really had any impact on the debate. They had no impact on the debate in any way, shape, or form. They asked questions, let them ramble, and said, "Fine, yeah, would I have liked Biden to do it better? Yes. Now, talking to how Biden, like he had like plenty of moments where he like fumbled something or was talking about things incorrectly. He was bad. It was an incredibly bad, especially when the bar was so low and he didn't clear it. Like even an average Joe Biden, where he like forgets something sometimes, would have been better than what we saw. It was just bad. But he was at least talking policy. Like he may have mixed some numbers up, because when he's talking about the Border Patrol thing, the Border Patrol didn't endorse it, but they endorsed his right-wing bipartisan bill that the Republicans killed. Like they absolutely endorsed that. Why? Because it's a terrible fucking bill, and they want that shit. So like the Border Patrol doesn't need to endorse that, but they that's what he was probably referring to. There was just plenty of stuff. He's right. The economy was in shape. Like this is a thing that I've talked to Pondering Politics about a lot. Basically, since 2020, the concept of linear time is foreign to conservatives. They don't understand when Trump was president, whether it was 2019 or 2020. They also don't realize how long ago 4 years ago it was. We were at 13% unemployment when Joe Biden took office. Like we weren't in the best economy. Maybe you could make that argument prior, like in 2019, you could maybe make that argument because I think the numbers were kind of similar to where they were now. I think they were lower, or they were like the unemployment was a little higher and stuff. Wages certainly weren't as high, but like when Trump left office, the economy was in shambles. Now, you could say, oh, well, that was because of COVID. Well, part of the president's job is to steer the country through crisis. And there hasn't been, like, basically since 9/11. Well, that's not true. There have been, like, 3 major crises in my lifetime. 9/11, the 2008 crash, and COVID. And Trump did a terrible job with the one he got handled with. He just did a fucking terrible job. Now, to be fair, he did actually do warp speed, which was effective. The problem with that is he has an entire anti-vax party that just wants to kill as many children as possible because they don't believe in vaccines anymore. So he can't actually gloat about that. But yeah, the idea that Donald Trump did good at this debate is just nonsense. It's just a vibes thing. Like if you just listen to the words he said, he didn't say anything important. He has no ability. It's not even that he has no ability to explain a policy, like because he doesn't, because he has no policies. That's why every time they ask him about a policy, he says, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks, and then it never comes. Like we're still waiting for his healthcare policy 4.5 years later. The thing with Trump is he doesn't know anything. Like literally he's a moron. Just like he doesn't even understand his own policies. And I really like we are so far into this that like not even like the afterbirth stuff. I just want somebody to fact check literally anybody saying this. Like just fact check one person on this. It is so demonstrably false, just like across the board, that just like even if you're on Face the Nation when they're talking about abortion and they because they always go to this and nobody ever fact check because it's so fucking false. And this is the other thing. And this is I wish Biden had been a little tougher on this. When like his abortion answer when he ended it talking about the migrants, we'll talk about this later. It's part of what we'll talk about, was a terrible way for him to respond to that. But a really good way was to talk about this study about Texas. Mm-hmm. So Texas has one of the harshest abortion bans in the country. And you know what happened to infant mortality rate? It spiked. It's up at least 8%. Why? For a whole host of reasons. One of it is they have less doctors because people don't want to deal with the craziness that's happening and the potential to be sued. 2, the doctors don't know when to react because part of the problem with these laws is they don't have a direct, like finite line of when a person can directly do this. It's up to the doctor, and the doctor has to just hope that whoever, whatever crazy person doesn't decide to sue them for this. And thirdly, like you mentioned with the Virginia case, because they are not dealing with these babies who don't have skulls, who are just not or stillborn or whatever. They're considered born and then they die because they can't functionally exist anyway. So having an abortion would both save the mother from the potential complications and also deal with the fact that this thing is not going to survive. And if it does, it's just going to be suffering the entire time of its existence. So like, these are points that you should point out to. And yeah, I wish Biden had gotten to them, but like, I nobody should feel good about this debate, But the people who should feel the worst about this debate, besides like Biden, obviously, but he can hopefully recover, should be Trump. And like, I'm going to be honest, if I'm him, I'm not doing another debate. Like, why would you? Because what are the chances that you get this version of Biden twice?
Mm-hmm.
There's no upside for Trump. Like, there's nothing he can do in this debate that would be better. Like, Biden can only go up. Trump can't go up because there is no up. That was essentially the best. He has no grasp on policy. He has no grasp on history. He has no grasp on reality. It's just the same. He's basically doing the same speech at the debate, at courts when he was in court, and he would go out and say the same stuff, which, like, if we're going to talk about somebody who can't function, fell asleep every goddamn day. And then it's the same speech basically for the last 4 years. It changes a little depending on which thing he's mad about, or which electric vehicle he doesn't understand how it functions, which is apparently a big thing. He doesn't understand how electric boats do. He doesn't understand how electric planes, which aren't a thing, like fully 100% electric planes, I don't think are a thing. He doesn't understand how they, like, his understanding of energy may be the single worst understanding of energy, other than Neil Gorsuch's understanding of pollution. For those of you who don't know, they just basically said that the EPA can't regulate pollution. And during Neil Gorsuch's, I don't know if he was the one who wrote the opinion, he confused the pollution they were talking about with laughing gas 8 times. So that's a fun thing. But no, Trump they should be happy that Biden did badly, and that it took away from the fact that Trump was also an incredible disaster and remains a disaster literally anytime anybody talks to him.
So here's, like, as far as I'm concerned, you're 100% correct, though. Like, Trump he didn't make any logical points. And Barbara, I know you don't want to listen to Fresh Faces trash Trump, but I'm about to go on a tear trashing Trump myself. The thing is that Trump doesn't have policy ideas. He says that he's going to solve the Ukraine and war crisis. He didn't say how. He said that this never would happen under his administration. There's no way of proving any of that stuff. The fact of the matter is he always talks, and, like, to your point, as far as, like, I think what Biden could have done instead was talk about the case in Ohio where a 10-year-old girl was raped by a guy that just happened to be.
It averages out to a girl a week.
Yep.
It averages out to a 10-year-old a week has to get an abortion in Ohio.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But my point is like, this 10-year-old girl was raped by a migrant. Whether you want to call him illegal or whatnot, he's just an absolute horrendous person, right? Well, anyway, the thing is like, because in Ohio she was not able to get an abortion, she actually had to leave the state to get an abortion in Indiana. Ohio cared more about the fact that she was going to get an abortion for being raped than she was like the fact that she got raped. Now, thankfully, the guy was arrested. The guy was, arrested. He's been found guilty, and he should spend the rest of his life behind bars. Nobody is saying
found guilty. Has been. I don't know if he's just been arrested. Whether or not they've had a trial yet.
I think they've had a trial already. So.
Because that seems fast.
Yeah,
I thought this was relatively recent. I don't know. Like, I agree with you. It's a horrific case, but I think it's Ohio that's had, like, maybe it was Texas that have had like
Texas,
30 plus women.
Yeah,
who
Texas has had a spike
out of the state because their health is so bad because they can't get an abortion.
Exactly. Texas is one of those states where, like, if a woman, like, there was a woman that had a pregnancy, right? It was a non-viable pregnancy, but she was unable to actually get treatment. She actually had to leave the state in order to get treatment. Now, this was a non-viable pregnancy. It was already approved by a district judge, essentially. It never should have gotten to that point, because we need to understand something. Non-viable pregnancy means that the chance of the fetus surviving is non-existent, right? And what people need to understand is, like, with a woman that is carrying a non-viable pregnancy, right, there's a condition called sepsis, right, where the fetus dies, right? Or if you want to call it a child, fine, call it a child, it dies. What happens then is, like, she's not able to pass it through the birth canal and whatnot, or she's not able to. What it does is it develops infections. Like, the decomposing body basically is going to leak out, and it's going to cause an infection in the body itself, right? it's going to get worse for the mother. It's going to put her at risk. It's happened multiple times, not just in the United States, across the world. Now, this is why it's important. Now, there are people say, oh, well, we need to make exceptions for the mother. Texas tried to overrule that. Hell, the Attorney General or Lieutenant Governor or the Attorney General of Texas overruled the decision. It was the Attorney General. Overruled that decision.
He threatened the hospital if they did this, even though I think it was the Texas Supreme Court that said she could have the abortion. And he said, listen, if you do it, I'm still going to arrest you. Which, like, let's be real. This motherfucker needs to be in jail anyway. Like, he's been under criminal indictment for like a decade.
Yep, absolutely. But, like, these are the cases that we should be focused upon. Now, Biden should not have gone off on the tangent when it came down to abortion, talking about immigration. Had he focused on the fact that there was a young 10-year-old girl that was raped by a migrant or illegal immigrant, or I'm just going to say he's a piece of shit, okay? I'm not even going to focus on this guy's fucking illegal immigration status, okay? Now, people say, oh, well, he never should have been in the country. I'm not going to get in the weeds on that. But the fact of the matter is the guy is a piece of shit. He raped a 10-year-old girl, and she got pregnant as a result of that. She should not be, condemned to motherhood. She should not be condemned to carry that child to term whatsoever, okay? And I've had this discussion many, many times. People's like, oh, are you punishing the baby? No, I'm not punishing the baby, okay? It's a fucking fetus at that point. Exactly.
It's like a grain of rice.
Exactly. But anyway, like, kind of going back into it, though, is that Trump doesn't have policy ideas. He doesn't. The fact of the matter is like, when I listen to the way he talks, and I talked about this earlier, the thing that Trump said, oh, well, I had the best environmental record. No, he didn't, actually. People need to understand his gutting of regulations actually made it to where companies, like coal companies, can actually dump their waste into fresh drinking water areas in places like Colorado. That actually has a drastic effect on people that have to drink that fucking water. And that's something people need to understand. These aren't good policy decisions. His gutting of regulations for freight companies. Now, as somebody that actually picked up, like, from train yards, I can tell you the gutting of these regulations doesn't make anybody safer because this actually puts more people in danger. Now, we could also make the argument, oh, well, the gutting of these regulations possibly could have led to East Palestine. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but it very well could have. Why? Because the reason why these regulations that he gutted were put in place was because trains are using outdated braking technology. That's something people are not looking into. Something like this is dangerous because we always talk about how, well, we're having thousands, over 1,500 train derailments a year. That's something that's been going on for decades because we don't focus on the health and welfare and the maintenance of these tracks, essentially. That's why, like, it was such a big deal when BNSF and Norfolk Southern, all these CSX, all these other train companies were having to talk with the unions about how they're going to take care of their workers because the workers were pissed. They're like, listen, we need to get taken care of here. And I 100% agree with them. They have every right to be pissed about this. But the fact of the matter is working on the railroad is a tough business. And gutting these regulations because you say it's infringing and making it harder for people to work is bullshit. Regulations are in place for a reason. And this is something that Biden should have harped upon. But it's just, debating is not Biden's strong suit. Policy is far better. Like, let's be honest. Let's call it for what it is. His policies have been overwhelmingly popular. I mean, and I talk about this all the time.
His domestic policies have been very good. His foreign policies have been mostly poor.
Disastrous. Let's call it for what it is. But the bipartisan infrastructure bill is probably the best policy that I've seen happen in this country in my lifetime because we haven't had a strong enough emphasis on infrastructure since Eisenhower. For crying out loud. That's in the 50s, for crying out loud. And
yeah, I have a good analogy for the infrastructure bill, but I want to get very quickly back to the regulations because this isn't something we're going to talk about. They're going to get worse, like demonstrably worse, like really fast. For those of you who don't know, this was a really bad week for anyone who really loves this country or likes to not have lead in their water or mercury in their food. The Supreme Court just got rid of Chevron deference.
Yep, I heard about that.
Basically, what Chevron deference is it says that when Congress writes a law, the arbiter of who decides how that law is carried out and what the the minutia of it is the agency, the federal agency has to do it. So like if they're doing clean water, like the IRS is not going to deal with clean water shit. The EPA is. But what happened when we're moving Chevron deference is the agencies aren't the ones who make this decision anymore. It's the judges. So when I brought up that thing about pollution earlier, Neil Gorsuch is now going to make decisions on how much lead is in your water, and he doesn't know the difference between laughing gas and whatever the fuck the actual pollution that they were dealing with was. And keep in mind, Chevron deference and like some of these cases are directly due to the fact that Neil Gorsuch's mother was placed in the EPA by Ronald Reagan in order to destroy it from the inside. Mm-hmm. Like that's who's deciding how much fucking clean air you get, is a guy whose fundamental life story is from trying to make the environment worse.
Yeah, and that to me is frightening, honestly, because anybody that says, oh, well, global warming, climate change is a farce, they have not looked into the science about this. It's a very real thing. They have not
existed on this planet for the last 2 years. Yeah. It's so fucking hot in the goddamn summer, like in comparison to any other point in history. Like if you have a brain span of more than 5 years, it's been hotter. And they'll be like, oh, it's hot in the summer. It's like, it hasn't been this hot. Last year in Texas, it was 110 degrees for like 3 months. Like, you just fucked.
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing, because like what people don't understand is like we send a lot of business down to Mexico, right? Like for example, some infrastructure products get sent down there for siding for their houses, right? Well, they get painted down in Mexico. Now, if anybody's not aware, there's a drought going on in Mexico where they have to prioritize the water to be used to go to their citizens instead of like for the pigmentation for the siding for houses. This is a real thing. There is a serious drought going on. And thankfully, the new president of Mexico is a person that's actually focusing upon climate change. She actually understands that climate change is a problem. Now, what she does with it...
Is she like part of their like EPA or whatever it was? I think that's what she did.
She has a degree in environmental science or something like that, from my understanding, because I actually covered her a couple weeks ago. But the thing is like, it's important for us to understand this is a serious issue. Now, people can argue, oh, well, that's how the weather is. No, it's not, okay? Now, there have been people that have been incorrect about, like, when the polar ice caps are going to melt, and that happens. That's the beautiful thing about science. There are no 100% correct answers. The science changes all the time. But the fact of the matter is, climate change is a huge crisis. It affects everybody across the country. It affects everybody across the world, for crying out loud. And the fact of the matter is like the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure, all these things, there's a reason as to why, like, for example, the infrastructure bill, where they want to put more charging stations across the country. Pete Buttigieg, and I love Pete Buttigieg, like, I cannot wait for him to run for president, honestly. I don't care what anybody fucking says, okay? He's able to articulate as to why it's good. Now, he says nobody's forcing you to buy an electric car, but they're telling you can get tax write-offs for buying an electric car. It's no different from getting solar panels, which I definitely want to get solar panels one of these days. You get tax write-offs from that. You see a reduction in your power bill. Like, there are so many benefits to this. Exactly.
Yeah, no, like so I like the infrastructure bill. I like the Inflation Reduction Act. I agree with the people who like the progressives, like Jamal Bowman, who voted against them because they were correct. Those were half measures for Biden's policy. They split up what his original policy is. But like talking about the infrastructure, this is the analogy that I use because it's the largest investment in infrastructure like in history. Mm-hmm. If you have a roof and your roof is leaking and every so often you put $1 in to patch it up, but it's going to cost $10 to ultimately replace the whole roof. And you suddenly put $6 into fixing it, and it will maybe patch it up mostly. That's a historic investment, but it's not enough to solve all the problems in your roof. And that's what the bipartisan infrastructure bill was. It was a historic investment that was a good first step. And this was how I talked about for his first 2 years. Joe Biden, and had he decided to leave after that, he would have been viewed much more positively than I think he is. Now, granted, I don't know how him being a one-term president and then him dealing the way he has with Israel would have affected his ultimate legacy. But the policy positions that he placed are good springboards for actual, really more fundamental changes, because he has done a lot of good things. Those bills. We haven't even talked about the stuff that they've done where they're going after like Ticketmaster. They're going after that. They just went after all the landlords. They went after airline fees. They went after junk fees. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that he has done, not legislatively, that has been incredibly effective. And if you could ask Donald Trump to articulate literally anything to deal with, like, just would be really cool during one of these debates if they just asked like one super granular policy issue. Like, how would you deal with the fact that housing is expensive? Like, just ask a question and then follow up. Just one time would be amazing. Now, hopefully the next debate will be better. But I think the focus, besides like proving Joe Biden is like not a corpse, is they need to start focusing on dealing with the courts. Like, it has to happen. The conversation has to happen now, because Joe Biden's not going to do anything about that. Like, Dick Durbin's been terrible on this. The only way to deal with this is either court expansion or try to remove some of these justices, because they're just going to go buck wild, just ruining everybody's life. And like, the best hope we would have for that is some type of miracle landslide for this year, which I don't think would possibly happen, just because I think the Senate map is too ugly, that the only way we're going to really hold the Senate is a 50-50 Senate. So in reality, you're probably not going to get rid of the filibuster. So then the earliest we're going to be able to do any type of court reform would be 26. But most likely it would have to be a major platform of whoever's running for president in 28. Like, that's the thing that needs to be start talking about. And I know Buttigieg was talking about it. But that's got to be the focus on top of that. And you can't, like conservatives aren't going to talk about it. They don't care. They've already won. They've already won that. So you can't ask that to like a Trump on his debate. But you could ask him, like, hey, can you explain what Chevron deference is and why it matters? Or can you, or they could ask him about the bump stock ban, because on guns, was he banned bump stocks? And the Supreme Court said, actually, you can still use it. They could be like, okay, Trump, why did you ban bump stocks, and can you give us an articulate reason for why they should still be banned? Like just follow up on something, even something he knows. Like, just every debate should ask him, how are you going to deport, and give the fucking numbers. Like, how are you going to deport 4.5 million workers? How are you going to pay for the camps to hold them? How are you going to pay for the flights to get there? How are you going to deal with the fact that not everybody who comes across is from a nation that's going to re-accept them? What are you going to do with all of this? Like, just ask him, and Ben, he's obviously not going to answer it, but ask it on a granular detail. Make it clear to them that these are the type of policies involved. Or somebody asked about Project 2025. Like, it shouldn't be up to like the regular people online and John Oliver to explain to everybody what the fuck Project 2025 is. Mm-hmm. And I do think the other thing is to tie 25 not just to this election, but to the greater Republican Party, because if they lose this election, it's just going to be Project 2029. It's just going to be Project whatever the fuck it is till they, like, because it's Heritage, it's all of their organizations. And if you want to talk about voter fraud, bring the Heritage study. They did like from the 80s to like 2013 or something study. You know how many cases of voter fraud they found? 1,000.
It was like 1,200.
Over like billions of votes, they found 1,000. There has never been enough voter fraud to overturn any case. Now, that's not to say voter fraud doesn't happen. It's exceedingly rare, because even when you do recounts, the largest recount ever overturned was 200 votes. Like, for this, like, do you understand how much of a conspiracy there would have to be? How many fucking people would have to be involved in this goddamn conspiracy to not say shit for this to have happened? We're talking at a minimum somewhere between, I think it was 50,000 votes across the swing states and 7 million votes for the like, that's what you're talking. That's an insane amount of people. You're talking at a minimum thousands and thousands of people. And like, oh, Project Veritas found it? Fuck you. Like, if you're a person who believes that Project Veritas is still real in the year 2024, you should not be allowed anywhere near power, or it should just be laughed at everywhere.
Yep, 100%. Because like Project Veritas was talking about how ballot harvesting was such a corrupt thing. Ballot harvesting is legal in 28 states, for crying out loud. But to your point, talking about like some of the great legislative decisions, I did a topic about this And I also talked to a guy that's running for the 9th Congressional District, which is my district, actually, in the state of Michigan. We talked about PBMs. Now, people for the not aware that are watching, PBMs are pharmacy benefit managers. They're basically the ones that actually determine the price of your prescription medication. The White House is actually addressing this. They actually had a conference where they actually brought in Mark Cuban, who actually started Cost Care Plus, where basically people can get their medication at a much cheaper rate than some of the insurance companies are charging for this now. Now, the reason why this is so important, and this is why I think more people need to be aware about this, is because there was a pharmacist that came in. He was an independent pharmacist out of Kansas. And he said, if there is not PBM reform by the end of this year, 34%, I believe, is the number of pharmacies, independent pharmacies, will close down across the country. That's 14,000 independent pharmacies across America. Now, people may think that's not that big of a deal. Think about that. We're talking about 14,000 pharmacies, and we're talking about in places that are like in rural America, where I live in rural America. We're talking about independent pharmacies where independent pharmacies are being crushed. There are 3 companies that have the market, that control 80% of the marketplace of PBMs. One of them is CVS. CVS can come into your town and they can charge whatever the hell they want to. They can, if you got Joe Schmo Snuffy who runs a pharmacy over here and he has medication X, and he has to charge $150 for it because that's all he can afford to do so, CVS can come in and says, I'm going to charge $50 for this, because they can't, because they're a multi-conglomerate corporation kind of deal. This is how it is. If they can control the market share, they're basically going to swallow up all these independent pharmacies. That is scary to think about. And the fact that more people are not talking about this just goes to show that our priorities are not exactly the same. Now, when it comes down to the debate, right, I knew this, and I said this last week. Trump is going to focus on the issues that are going to tug on the heartstrings the most. What tugs on heartstrings the most? The economy and immigration. Now, I talked to a buddy of mine. He works on Border Patrol, and he says Biden was wrong about the border policy. He's correct. Biden was not correct. However, we didn't get a chance to talk about the fact that, the Border Patrol Union supported the legislation. Because why? You said it earlier. It was a first step. A first step. And I said this. Huh?
It was the wrong first step. It was a right-wing bill that would not have solved the problem. The issue with immigration has to be an entire immigration system. Like, the biggest problem with immigration is the system doesn't work the way people think.
Yeah, it needs to be updated. 100%.
And so you have to increase judges. You have to create better pathways to citizenship. You have to expand protections. Like, he's done some, like, it's every other week. Like, his policy where he tried to basically implement this, like, there's a certain amount of crossings, we're going to close the border. Let's be very clear about this. At no point in the history of this country has the southern border been closed, like, ever, at any point ever. That's just not a thing. First off, it didn't also used to be an issue till, like, the it wasn't just they didn't care. Like, it's only a more recent thing that the border is treated in the way that it is. But, like, and then he expanded, there's the other policy where he expanded, if you've been here for 10 years and your spouse is a U.S. citizen, like, you have the ability to process through the system in a safer way. It was like, I think it was a DACA expansion, but they came after him as like, oh, this is mass amnesty. The earliest that somebody under this policy would be a U.S. citizen is 2030. Mm-hmm. Like, when they talk about these people having 7-year waits, it's because you've underfunded the part of the system that allows this part to function. If you want to be able to increase the asylum cases, you need more asylum judges. You need, and to basically say that that Border Patrol doesn't have to do credible fears, or that they have like 4 minutes to talk to a lawyer. These are not effective ways to deal with this, because it just basically recycles people instead of like dealing with it. Like, first, like, we should not be sending anybody back to Haiti. Like, that was insane that was part of the policy, is that they were doing deportation flights back to Haiti. I have my brother's girlfriend's Haitian. Like, she's family there. Like, we know what's going on.
I actually covered Haiti a while back, and it's an absolute shit show what's going on down there.
Every Haitian who showed up at the border should automatically get protective status, because they're like, there's no way you can send them.
Refugees. They are refugees, 100%. Like, it is fucking insanity what's going on down there. And I covered that a few weeks ago. on this show, talking about like there are 3 people that are vying for power, and none of them are good for that country. They are all just evil in their own special way, and they are not what's going to be the Haiti. Like Haiti has just it's like let's say, for example, if you're in a room filled with TNT, gunpowder, all that kind of shit, and you're basically given a box of matches, and there's a trail of fucking gunpowder being led to you, and you got different people that are lighting the matches, basically. That's all it is. Because either way, the country is going to fucking implode on itself. And it's an absolute travesty. And
yeah, between all the physical and the problem that like every decade they get hit with like an unbelievable natural disaster.
Yeah.
Just it's like they need an entire reboot of their political structure.
They really
and it has to be without like U.S. intervention, like in setting it up. Like if we're gonna like we can help because the Kenyan peacekeeping force just arrived.
I was bringing that up. Yeah.
Like we should not have boots on the ground. Like if somebody else from the UN, it makes sense. Like we can give them financial support or weapons or whatever the fuck they need to stabilize it as like so it can function, so it's not run by gangs and shit.
Sure,
like, that's what we should do. But like we shouldn't be involved with the Haitian people need to set up their own government. Yeah,
absolutely. So, but like, and to your point, like the immigration system is completely out of date. It takes about 10 to 20 years for people to become citizens. And let alone the fact that there are people that actually try to follow the process. Now, the majority of the people that are here, as far as like, you know, the term illegally, now I'm just going to keep using the term, not because I'm trying to be offensive, because like it's just the one that everyone's paid attention to. It's not because they crossed over the border, it's because they are here on expired visas and they've tried to go through the process of actually trying to do the right thing, but just because there's such a massive backlog, they just can't get their visas renewed, essentially. Now, people don't understand. I think about, my math could be off, but about 13% of the industry, trucking industry, is with people that are immigrants, right? People that are here legally, they have their work visas, and they're trying to get their immigration status. They deliver your goods, they deliver your groceries, your clothing, your whatever. And they're trying to do everything right. Because I had a guy that I worked with, co-driver, great guy, from Ethiopia. I taught him a lot of English, like a lot of English slang and whatnot. But he had always consistently tried, but because his immigration lawyer, it was so hard to get in contact with him because he's got such a massive backlog. Now, people say, oh, well, you know, they just got to go through the process. They are going through the process, but because it's so time consuming. Hell, you got people that serve in the military that are not even American citizens. They serve in the military, and it takes them years to become citizens, for crying out loud. I mean, what does this tell you? That we need to update our immigration system. Immigration judges, immigration lawyers, immigration, personnel, immigration clerks, what have you. We have to find a better system about this. But Trump just says, carte blanche, kick them all out because I say fuck the immigrants. Even though his wife is immigrant, he says get rid of chain migration. That's how her parents got into the goddamn country. Through chain migration, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's things like this that people need to understand. He says all the buzzwords that gets people talking, but nobody does the research. Why?
In order to do his deportation plan, it would turn America into a police state. There's no other way to functionally remove. I think he says it's like 20 million. I don't think it's that high. But like they would just be tossing anybody brown or Spanish or like vaguely non-American out of the country.
Oh, he's even said he's even said that if people don't follow the Christian ethics, they should be kicked out. He was even talking about Muslims. He's talking about, I mean, my God, dude. I mean, this is why it's such a problem. It's because people are they're zeroed in. He's saying what we're thinking. Well, what the fuck are you thinking exactly? My God,
that's
dude.
why this election is about vibes. It's not about policy,
exactly.
Which is unfortunate because, like, I don't agree with Joe Biden's policy. I wish most of them were further left. But like, you just talk to like the Republicans just as a party, they have this built-in advantage where if you tell somebody what a Republican policy is, like, oh, they're going to get rid of all birth control, IVF, and no fault divorce. they're going to go, no, they don't. That's crazy. Nobody would do that. And then they like introduce a bill that does exactly that. They're like, I don't believe it. Or they want to create a Christian nation, even though that's not constitutional. I don't believe that. It's like, well, Louisiana just said that you have to put the Ten Commandments
last week.
And Oklahoma just said you have to teach the Bible. Like they said that this week.
Yeah.
Like that's not even talking about what Alito thinks too, or whatever person just drops a bag of cash at Clarence Thomas's house.
Yeah.
Like they suffer from this. Like you can say anything about a Democratic policy and they'll believe you. Like if you told a right winger that Joe Biden was going to bring in 40 million immigrants to just replace all the white people, they'd be like, yeah, I absolutely agree that that's the thing. That he's just, pumping out abortions like left. Like Joe Biden is personally giving every woman in America an abortion unless your kid is trans or gay. They'll be like, yeah, I believe that 100%. Like that's the problem. Is there's an asymmetrical war where they can be as cruel and evil as possible. Like, I don't believe that's going to happen until it does. Like, we shouldn't have to worry about the Republicans catching the car for people to realize that their policies are bad. Because at that point, in order to fundamentally go around to figure out how to solve whatever crisis they've caused by Chevron, by Dobbs, which, to be fair to the Supreme Court, they didn't allow convicted felons to have firearms, which I honestly thought they would. That's a good thing. To, like, whatever the other terrible policy of the week is, it's just, like, they can't, like, there's been studies on this that they have a hard time understanding how policies are going to affect people unless it directly affects them. And that's part of the asymmetry of this election and just in general. But, like, this is a vibes election, and it's really unfortunate because Trump's a fucking moron and a lunatic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing is, and I say this all the time, Trump is an absolute moron, but he is a marketing genius. The guy is so good about marketing people's feelings. He's so good about marketing his name. I mean, that's what he's good at.
I don't like. I understand that people like his name and stuff is at it, but I think it's a little bit like the level of cultishness is like, I think beyond even like anything he kind of realized. Or he didn't do anything special to invoke this this cult like thing. It just kind of happened, and it's very weird that he was the one who did it because like the policies he did as a Republican when he was in office, like the majority of them, the ones that were like actually passed, were basically Republican shit. Like you could have replaced it with any other Republican, but now it's all just like they're just so gung ho about it. Like with all these rallies and the people who go to these rallies, they're all just fucking brain broken.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Mark Cuban said it best, right? Is that he talked about like when Trump initially got elected, right, in 2017, he did a conference or like did a lecture in Oxford, and he said, "Listen, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with Obama, and said, listen, I disagree with him, but he can actually articulate his position, and he can say, I can see where he's coming from. I can't do that with Trump because he can't articulate those positions." And again, I've read multiple books about people that were in the room with Trump, and all of them agree that he just has no idea what he's doing. One of the first questions he asked was, how do I declare a war exactly? And people like...
I mean, even the things he says, it's not even just behind the closed door stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you thought about it as a policy thing, can you name a cabinet member of Biden's who said, I don't think Biden is fit to be president, versus it's basically at this point, like finding a cabinet member.
Oh, but they're on the deep state. They're on the deep state.
I think the only one who's like still believing in him is like Mike Pompeo.
Yeah.
And
even he doesn't believe it. Even he hasn't endorsed Trump actually.
Yeah, but he hasn't like come out and said, this motherfucker is like incapable of doing this job.
Well, the thing is, like, there have been people that have come out against Biden that used to work on his administration. They say they can't support him anymore, but they're not supporting Trump. But it's all because of like how they feel he's handled the Israel and Gaza crisis.
It's Israel. They're not saying like overall he's incapable of doing this job. They're saying I cannot agree with this policy. And I understand.
That's fair. That is fair. Like, here's the thing. If people tell me that they cannot support Biden because of how he handled Israel and Palestine, that's a position you can defend. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong, because even I feel like that situation has been handled poorly, 100%. But I also say that this is a really hard position to be in, because if you don't support Israel, you're anti-Semitic. If you don't support Palestine, you're You're pro-genocide. What a horrible position to be in, honestly. Like
you can. This is how I describe it to somebody who's Jewish. Well, especially so. There's two things here. People like Ben Shapiro believe that I'm not actually Jewish because I don't support Israel.
Yeah,
you can disagree with the government and not disagree with the people.
Yes.
Like if you disagree with Biden, you don't hate America and want to see America destroyed.
Yes.
Like, you can disagree. Like I don't have issues with Israel is existence.
Yeah.
I mean, there are issues with how it came into existence.
Yeah, of course.
Like that's not what my argument is. Like I don't have a problem with Israeli people, most of them. But Bibi, fuck Bibi. Like, or whatever. Like the fact that they're inviting him to come talk is like political suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a terrible. Like there are things but that's not what people are arguing for Trump. They're not arguing with like a specific thing. And the other thing with Biden is like some of these online lefties who are like, oh yeah, he didn't get rid of all my student loans. It's like, yeah, he also didn't say he was going to do that either.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Like if you want to have an argument about like, oh, Joe Biden didn't solve all the problems, well, you're a fucking idiot first off, because no president is going to solve all of your problems. It's impossible because they don't have A, magic wands, B, dictatorial power, or see how our fucking government works. Like if you have problems, you can have arguments with Biden, but it's not like you like have real arguments with him. You want to talk about him being old? Yeah, Trump is old too. Like if you want to talk about the Israel-Palestine thing, I agree. He's done a bad job for it. But don't be like one of those people who's like, yeah, Trump is going to solve it. Like they asked him what he was going to do, and his answer was just bomb them harder, basically.
Yeah.
Like they asked him, do you believe there should be a Palestinian state? And he said, he started with, I will just give Israel every weapon that they want. And he ended it with calling Joe Biden a Palestinian. Yep. Like that's where it was. Like if you had any fucking notion that Donald Trump is going to be better on this issue than Joe Biden,
Bibi wants Trump back in office. He's made that abundantly clear. He wants.
This is the second Democratic president he's undermined in this way.
Yep.
He did it to Obama, and he's doing it to Biden. Now, granted, Biden is also like just being acquiescent to an absurd degree, and this is the way I respond to all of that. Like, I understand it's very hard to vote for him. The way to punish Biden for this is not to not vote for Biden, because if Biden loses, Biden's going to be fine.
Yeah.
The way to punish Biden for this is to give him the most left-leaning majority that he possibly has, which will basically force him into positions that are more left. Like, this is the example I give. He said during the campaign that I would veto Medicare for all if it came to his desk. First of all, that's bullshit. If Medicare for all passed the House and passed the Senate, it's like the single most popular policy position in like the country. If that happened, if it passed the Senate in like a way that like realistically Medicare for all would function, he's not going to veto that shit. That would be like insane that type of legislation would pass and he would veto it. Like that's not going to happen. Like that's how you punish Biden. You make him you drag his ass to the left by having actual Democrats who are focused. And unfortunately, we just decided that George Latimer was a better decision for that. And as a person who lives in his district, that's bullshit. Like Joel Bowman is not perfect. He is also not great. But he's not going to sit there and say, actually, I don't want to raise taxes on the rich. Or just like every week say something insanely racist about black people. Like that's what we need, like actual non-Joe Manchin type.
Yeah, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. The fact that they switched their affiliation to independent is an atrocious thing.
He's just going to run for governor in West Virginia. Like to be clear, like Joe Manchin is the last Democratic senator to ever be elected out of West Virginia. He just is. Like it's just not going to happen because of how red that state is. But Joe Manchin's also been like he's the last of a dying breed for hopefully for Democrats in the Senate. But he should also be in jail because of what his family and his daughter did with the EpiPens. Like,
I don't know anything about that, but
so his daughter. So part of the Shkreli thing is they spiked EpiPen prices. How did they do this?
Okay.
Basically, they bought up a competitor with that was creating a cheaper alternative to the EpiPen, and they said, "Listen, we're just going to buy you out, and because of that, we'll spike our prices and we'll give you some of the profits instead." Now, as an EMT, I need to explain how bad this was. The price for an EpiPen was like $600 a pop. if you're functioning as an EMT company, we have, I think, about a dozen to 20 trucks in our fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of those needs between 2 to 4 EpiPens to be in case we deal with somebody who's having an allergic reaction. That's like $30,000 here. So instead, what we do is we have to carry little vials of epinephrine around because it's significantly cheaper. Like, that's what the type of shit, and we're able to do that because we're like a company that deals with this. But like the average American, if they have a anaphylactic disease, they can't afford to buy these EpiPens because they expire every 2 years. Like that's another $1,200 and shit that you just gonna have to magically come out, or maybe you fucking die. Like, that's where you're living, and that's the type of shit that Joe Manchin help enable.
And that's criminal, honestly. And believe me, I definitely wanted to like harp on stuff like that, but I like when I look at this whole situation, right? As far as like you brought up an interesting point as far as like Joe Biden. If Joe Biden gets voted out of office, and Jessiah from Pondering Politics, him and I talked about this, right? Because I had him on a while back. He said, if Joe Biden gets voted out of office, he's gonna be fine. He's got his 6-figure pension. He's got his health care for the rest of his life. He's not going to get punished. Yeah, his ego might get bruised, but guess who's going to suffer? The American people. We're the ones that are going to suffer should he lose. Because Trump has not promised to do anything except for retribution, retaliation. He has told his supporters, I will be your retribution. Nobody talks like that. No elected official, nobody running for office ever talks like that except for Trump. But for some reason, that guy gets handled with kid gloves more than anybody else I've ever seen.
He really made like a monkey paw wish or something that like every time it seems like there's something bad that's like going to drag him down, something falls. Like the fact that he's going to have 3 court cases or 4 court cases, and the only one is the Stormy Daniels one because he got the one judge in Florida that could like fuck it all up. The Supreme Court stepped in for the DC case. And then Fannie Willis, for some inexplicable reason, decided to put her fucking boyfriend.
That was so stupid.
Like what type of nonsense does he have that this shit just lucks out to him all the time? Like, there are people who, if you tell them that he is by law, like in a civil court, found to be a sexual predator, they don't either care, or they'll tell you her dog was named Vagina, and that somehow exonerates him. Like, what the fuck? I want to know what monkey paw he got blessed with that let him have this type of effect on things.
I honestly couldn't tell you. But when it comes down to this, and when it comes down to the case of the Stormy Daniels case, I'm going to say it like this. And other people said it like this as well. It was definitely one of the weakest cases. It's not the one that's the hugest circumstance. But the fact of the matter is like, his legal team agreed to this jury, as did the prosecution. They heard the case. He had every ample opportunity to testify his own defense, but he didn't, right? Now, people say, oh, well, he wasn't allowed to. I find that hard to believe. Everybody has the right to testify.
He wasn't allowed to do, like, stochastic terror outside the courthouse. That's what he wasn't allowed to do.
Yep.
Like, now, to be fair, the Stormy Daniels case itself is described wrong. It's not a hush money case. It's an election interference case, because that's what it is. He paid her off in order for the story not to come out to interfere with the election. It's an election interference case. The statute is something else because that's what the statute was.
They upgraded it to a felony, yeah. They upgraded it to a felony, essentially.
But, like, the other thing with all of his court cases are, like, they're like, oh, they're just, they can do it to him, they can do it to you. No, they can't. Literally every single court case he's done is because he's insanely powerful or was president. Like, the average person, if you pay hush money to a porn star, nobody's going to give a shit. You're not going to really get followed. Nobody's going to throw you. You're not going to get a charge for that because you're not, it's not interfering with the election. If you steal classified documents as president, you can only do that as president. If you interfere with a case in Georgia, like they did on the phone call, that only is a thing he can do because he's president. It's not like if you want to talk about it, if they can do this to you, they can do. If they do this to me, they can do it to you. It's the Hunter Biden case because he had a gun for like 11 minutes, and it's like an average. It's a case that never gets brought. Like,
exactly.
Literally never gets brought. Like, the case against Trump and Stormy Daniels, it's been brought over 1,000 times. Like, the people have gone. This isn't just made up theory. Like, The Hunter Biden case is they can do it to you, they can do it to us. And it is like that case was fucking terrible. Just I cannot believe he got found guilty for that shit because that case was so fucked up. Like I think he did do it, but like there were so many other things like the FBI and how they dealt with that was fucking terrible.
Yeah, and you know, people say, "Oh, what about Hunter Biden?" I was like, I don't give a shit about Hunter Biden. If he's guilty, he's not. I guess I won't be voting for Hunter Biden then. I guess there goes my vote for Hunter Biden. I vote
for him. If you don't want to vote for your felon, that's fair.
Exactly. I mean, but it's just anytime you want to bring up the corruption of Donald Trump, I always hear, "What about Joe Biden? What about Hunter Biden? What about Hillary Clinton?" That's not a good argument, okay? And I always say it like this. If you can prove that Joe Biden committed a crime, all right? Now, Jared Moskowitz, God bless him, said, listen, if you want to vote, if you said that there's evidence to prove that Joe Biden is corrupt, let's vote to impeach him right now. I'll vote for it right now. Jim Jordan, James Comer, they had, like, stunned looks on their faces, like, what do we do?
They had nothing.
Yeah,
it was all the same.
It's a show.
Bullshit.
It's a show. That's all it is. They're doing this to appease one person. That's the only reason why they're doing these cases. The 2022-2023 Congress was the most ineffective Congress in a century because their policies were not passing legislation. It's all about
it was half as productive. Yeah. No, it's not even half. It's I think they passed 40 bills this year.
Yeah.
And the average is 400.
Exactly. They are not doing shit. Their only focus is to just go after Biden because of one person saying, "Hey, listen, you need to go after this," and that's a shame. They're on this game about turnabout is fair play. Listen, I'm very consistent about this. If you have proof that Joe Biden is guilty of something, by all means, bring it forward. I'll probably support you, especially if you can prove the case. But even their key witnesses said, I don't see grounds for impeachment here. I don't know why we're here for it in the first place. I mean, it's hilarious.
And then the other thing with this is like, yeah, you could probably bring charges against Obama for some of the drone strikes and stuff that he did on American citizens overseas. Like, yeah, if you want to do that, fine.
Go for it.
If you want to go after Clinton for whatever the fuck you want to go after Clinton for, that's fine. But, like, if you're doing war criminal shit, you probably don't want to be the party of George Bush. Like that may be a mistake for you. But, like, nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden because you saw that Obama was a war criminal. Like, I'm pretty sure Joe, like, I can understand the argument that Joe Biden has done war criminal shit because of what we've helped do in Israel. Like, yeah, I'm still voting for him. If you want to convict him and throw him in the egg for that shit after, yeah, I'm still going to support that thing. But, like, prove it. You're right. Like, they have nothing, and it's all just whataboutism for the fact that their candidate is terrible, and it's super unfortunate that Joe Biden, like, if he was like 10% more put together, this would be like over.
Yeah, it would be.
And the other thing would the other thing is like, who's going to replace him? Well, it has to be Kamala.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to replace him, it has to be Kamala.
Yep. And because like Gavin Newsom, people don't understand that like Gavin Newsom is compromised as well. Like, people don't understand that he's got ties to PGE, and like that's a whole other kettle of fish though. Because like
the way to describe this election is it's a buffer. You're buffering from the Trump wing this time. And then in 2028, we're going to have a fucking great field. It's going to be, we're going to have probably Buttigieg. We'll probably have Newsom, hopefully Whitmer. But I'm pulling for Shapiro in Pennsylvania. I think he's fantastic. If also, like, I want to, this is not like a real thing, but like a hypothetical. If we're going to hypothetically replace Joe Biden with a random old white guy, it should be Tim Walsh, the governor of Minnesota, because that guy's the fucking man. I love that guy.
I don't know about
him. There was these two competing pictures. Basically, what happened in Arkansas, because Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the governor, they basically opened up how kids can work. Yeah. And the picture of them, all of them look fucking miserable. And then you compare it to Tim Walsh, and he has this picture with these kids, and it's after basically they gave them universal lunch, and they're like unbelievably ecstatic. Like it's like that type of, like, he is fantastic. Yep. The Minnesota Democratic Party has done a fantastic job, almost entirely across the board. They've done the mayor of Minnesota's done some fucky things with the Uber drivers and the minimum wage there. But like, if we're gonna hypothetically replace Joe Biden with another old random white guy, that would be my choice.
Yeah. I don't know if Gretchen Whitmer would ever run for the big office, but I love Gretchen Whitmer. She would
be a good option.
Yeah, she is great. Like, I can't think of another politician that has had much bipartisan support where you got Republicans coming out saying she's doing a great job. Like, in 2022, I saw Republicans coming out and saying, Governor, you've done a great job for the state of Michigan. And at no point did she ever brag about it. And the level of the fact that, people actually legitimately tried to kidnap her and plotted to kidnap her, she doesn't talk about that shit. What does she focus on? Infrastructure. She focuses on, protecting a woman's right to choose. She focuses on school. She focuses on issues that actually matter to the average Michigander. I mean, and I love this governor. She is great. Like, I think she's been a fantastic governor. I can't see enough great things about her. I would love to talk to her sometime, but, I don't know if that'll ever happen, though. But
yeah, do you want to trade governors? Do you want Kathy Hochul?
Who's your governor?
I live in New York, so I have the worst governor major city combination in the country.
Okay.
And for a Democrat, I have Kathy Hochul and Eric Adams.
I've heard a lot of unpopular things about Eric Adams. So
Eric Adams is an absolute lunatic. This is a man who compared eating cheese to a crack addiction. He's out of his fucking mind. Like, the best there's a tweet that goes around every time Eric Adams, like, when Eric Adams won, it was because, like, he's a cop, and they're like, yeah, Eric Adams is going to be like a big national figure. And then and the way this tweet goes is correct. Is like, every Eric Adams press conference is, leprechauns are real, I'm going to find one and eat one, is basically what he does all the time. He's an absolute disaster. Kathy Hochul is an absolute disaster. She has like the worst political instincts of any governor in the country. I like, at least Cuomo wouldn't have blown a hole in the budget the way she did. Like, Cuomo wasn't a great governor. He was a piece of shit human being. But like, he was competent and had some like political savvy.
Fair enough. I don't know enough about, like, I just know that he's kind of a sexual deviant. I mean,
he's basically like a slimier Gavin Newsom. Like, he's an East,
yep.
He's an East Coast Gavin Newsom is a relatively good description.
And Gavin Newsom talks a good game, but I'm on to that guy. I'm on to Gavin Newsom for the fact
there's
that
a lot of shit that you would think from the way it's described that would be way better in California.
100%. So I think we pretty much like killed the whole debate. Like,
we still have the debate like an hour.
Yeah, it's just. But like, the thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, when it comes to the debate, you and I both agree Biden did not do a great job. But let's be honest, Trump was just nothing.
Also bad. He was just bad in a different way.
Gish Gallop, but no substance. I mean, he managed.
I don't think like the Gish Gallop argument is like good enough. It was a normal Trump event. Like, there was nothing new.
I call it a Trump Gallop because that's all he does. And like,
he does the same thing at every rally. The
Exactly.
only difference between a rally and his debate is he didn't go on an extended argument about some electric vehicle. That's the only difference.
Yep. And it's just, it was a disaster. Nobody won that debate at the end of the day. While Biden had the more substance and he had more facts, he just didn't drive the point home. And I really feel like, and I talked with somebody that is actually like working with the Biden campaign in the state of Michigan. I said, listen, if Biden wants to, son of a bitch, it's just like this thing always pops up. If Biden wants to win this if he wants to like be better optically, he's got to bring receipts. But the fact of the matter is, nobody gives a shit about receipts. Nobody really cares about those.
He's just appear optically better. Like, that's it. Like, he just can't appear as old. And I don't know if he's certainly never going to appear as poorly as he did, like, there.
Exactly.
But, like, I don't know how much of him could, like, because, like, he is, like, the Republican Party is cutting, like, deceptive videos. Like, that's, like, is a thing that's happening. They're like, oh, look at all our videos. They're true now. It's like, no, they weren't. They're still not true. He just looked bad in that debate. But, like, the idea that he's just going to, like, randomly wander off and has to be, like, escorted back, that's still not what that video showed. And
he was talking to paratroopers, yeah.
Yeah, like, this is the headline, but this is the video type of shit. And it's the same thing, like, the problem, it's a Twitter thing. Like, you see a headline and you don't
sell the sizzle, not the steak. That's all it is.
Like, there was there was a Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet a couple weeks ago when they were talking about the Her report, and some fucking, I don't even know, like fake right-wing thing was like, here's all the ways that like the Her report was documented, and then if you read the tweet, it was like, yeah, they took out some of the like, but
that's all it is. So they've actually continued to say that if, like, they're trying to get it to where Merrick Garland's going to get he's going to get fined $10,000 for every day he doesn't produce the actual video recording. But the thing is, he's even said is like, listen, we took out all the filler words, the uhs, the ums.
The transcript.
Yeah, they got the transcript, and it's the most accurate transcript. So how are you going to tell me that you believe him saying that Biden is a feeble-minded man that can't stand trial, but you're not going to accept his reasoning saying, it's just filler words. You're not going to learn anything new.
Yeah, that Her thing was such a hit piece. It was fun.
It really was. But you want to move on to our last two topics, basically?
Sure, yeah.
All right, so Julian Assange, who is the founder of WikiLeaks. Now, for those not aware, WikiLeaks has a history of leaking things like 90-some thousand reports to include classified material ranging from secrets from other governments, and also was leaking what they believed were war crimes that the U.S. was committing in theaters like Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, Julian Assange made a plea deal with the U.S. Justice Department, and now he is back at home in Australia. Now, since 2019, he had been in prison after being kicked out of the Ecuadorian embassy where he'd been living for 7 years after they granted him asylum. Apparently, he was become kind of a problem child there, messing with the waitstaff, treating people like shit,
He was he the one who had the sexual issues, or was that Snowden? One of them had like sexual harassment claims or something.
I don't know. I don't think it was Snowden. It might have been Assange. I don't know. I'm not gonna say he was the sexual pest or something like that. So, but apparently he was becoming a problem child. He was harassing waiters and waitstaff and like that. His room was always a mess, and he was treating people like shit. Apparently, that's why they kicked him out. Once he got kicked out, then they detained him, then they arrested him and stuff like that. But, so, long story short, when it comes down to WikiLeaks, they stole a lot of classified material. Now, I covered this topic. It was about 8 episodes back. It was on episode 10 with Cypher Report. We talked about Julian Assange. We talked about, what should happen with him. Should the U.S. make a deal with him whatsoever? Now, there are people that are libertarian. There are people that are on the right that think that, oh, well, Trump should, once he comes into office, he should just fully pardon Julian Assange. Now that the U.S. Justice Department has actually made a deal with him, they say, hey, listen, we're going to give you time served, but, however, all the material you have right now, all the things that are unpublished, you've got to return it or destroy it, essentially, and you have to show proof of these things, right? So, the fact of the matter is that when I look at situations like Julian Assange, right, we're talking about somebody that stole classified material. Now, I remain very consistent about this, okay? There is a process to declassify material, especially war crimes. You have to go through it. There's a certain channel, there's a certain bureaucracy. Yes, it might take a little bit of time, but the fact of the matter is if you were to say, okay, listen, I have this tape of a U.S. Apache helicopter pilot gunning down children, right? And we decided to classify this report. While you may feel that you are morally justified in doing so, you're setting a precedent. Basically, it's feeling like you can then have a guy, he might have been born in bumfuck Egypt or something like that, right? And he feels like there's something that's going on that he feels that is a problem that the U.S. is doing. Now, I picked Egypt as a country because it's the first one that came to mind. And he might object to this, so he's going to steal this classified material and he's going to leak it. That's the precedence that I'm always worried about. Now, when it comes down to the topic of Julian Assange, should he have gotten a plea deal? I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. I understand because there are civil rights and human rights activists out there that feel like he is a hero. I don't think Julian Assange is a hero, honestly. I feel he's an opportunist. He's a guy that is like an information broker. He sees information that is being processed and he is selling it and he is distributing it for clout and he's getting money off of it, essentially. I don't think of him as some kind of guy that's out there looking out for the best interests of people, because if he was doing that, because there's black market information out there about the DPRK, about, the Chechens and whatnot. Now, I don't know if he's done anything like this. I doubt it, because he's focusing on the major players, the UK, focusing on the United States. Has he done anything on Russia? I don't know. But the thing
he's pretty pro Russia.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. if he was such a huge humanitarian, he'd be focused on all the human rights issues across the board. I think of him as an opportunist. Why? Because he knows he's going to get the most bang for his buck. But anyway, based upon what you know about Julian Assange, what do you think about his plea deal with the United States, essentially?
Look, we have whistleblower protections. They're important. Whistleblowing is important. It's like, that's why they keep killing them at Boeing, because they don't want them to come out. But like, yeah, if you have the ability to go through our legal system in a way that they should be protected. I don't know enough about his specific case. My collection of WikiLeaks is the Podesta files, and in how basically that turned into Pizzagate. Like, you know, don't be a shit when you have this stuff. Like, being a whistleblower is an important thing to do, especially if you're like whistleblowing something that's like in the example you used, like that's a war crime, what you described. Like, if that shit is happening and you have the ability to blow the whistle on that, you absolutely should. Or when the pictures of Abu Ghraib came out, or the current concentration camps that the Israelis are doing, like shit like that is important to bring to light. But like, if you're just doing it because you're like stealing documents, like the Texera, the kid who did it over Discord,
fucking
like,
moron.
Yeah, like that shit's a problem. But like, if you're doing like actual whistleblowing shit, those people need to be protected because they're doing important work. Like, people argue, oh, well, they're putting national security. Like, yeah, that's kind of the point. Is like they're exposing problems in the national security, like excessive wiretapping or extrajudicial killings. Like, there's important shit that they need to do that may affect national security, but not in a way that's like less important than exposing a thing that is violating rights. So as long as the whistleblower is protected in a way that's, however whistleblower laws work, because I don't know. I don't. It's an area that I don't have a lot of understanding for. I like the big whistleblower case when they were doing the Ukraine impeachment. They kept trying to reveal who the whistleblower was so they could go after him. It's like, no, man, like, they're doing the right thing. Like, he did the right thing to do that. Assange, I just don't have enough answers or knowledge about that particular case to say anything beyond whistleblowers should be protected. And hopefully, if you're blowing the whistle, it is on a thing that deserves the type of scrutiny that you're attempting to bring to light. Like, it should be an issue that is important enough for it.
So when it comes down to like for example, this is why I said like I consider him an opportunist, right? If he was such a human rights activist, then why isn't he leaking more information about other human rights abuses? I can't say about Chechnya because that's kind of a recent thing, or the Uyghur genocide and stuff like that. But like things like we know for a fact that there are labor camps in the DPRK. There are people that are arrested, and 3 generations of their family are locked away in these labor camps for life, just for speaking out against that. Information like this, I'm sure he can find a way to find it and leak it. But he hasn't done that, though. That's why I'm wondering. This is why I consider him kind of an opportunist. It's because nobody gives a shit about the DPRK. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but because nobody cares about those people. And I think that's fucked up. Like, human rights violations are human rights violations as far as I'm concerned. But because it's the United States, the beacon of the free world, we are the standard setters, essentially. If we do something fucked up, it's going to get the most clicks. And I think that's what he's focusing on. Now, if the DPRK was getting clicks, I think then he would be focusing on. I mean, do you kind of get where I'm getting at, though?
No, I agree with you. I agree. I do. I think he certainly has a political slant. And I just don't have enough information about this particular case. I don't have enough information about just whistleblowing in general and the processes in which you have to do it in order to be protected. I think if you have access to the systems that he had, to get information, it would have been better to reveal more damning things of larger consequence. But I think it's good that I think the thing we do need to worry about though is they gave him an ultimatum. So if however long that goes and he hasn't done it and he basically reneges on his deal, that's not them. Like, if they arrest him again because of that's on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not like extra whistleblower stuff unless he does it through proper channels and stuff. I don't know. I just don't have enough information. I think, whistleblowing is important, especially in this day and age where you have so much information and you're able to do so much shady shit like across the board. So it would be, these are the people who need to be protected when they come forward.
Well, and the reason why I bring him up so much, it's because, are you familiar with the story In the Name of the Father of the Guilford Four? Are you familiar with that story?
No.
They did a movie about it. It's a highly recommended movie. It's based on a true story about the Guilford Four. It's basically 4 people that were falsely accused by the British government for being involved in an IRA killing. However, there was a statement taken by a homeless guy that was actually talking with these young people that exonerated them. But because they were Irish, they were basically sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for crimes they never committed, right? Now, there's a video. I'm going to send it to you on X later, and I think you should watch it. It's really fascinating. But he talks about like how he wishes there was an Edward Snowden in his day, or a Chelsea Manning, or he said Bradley Manning, but this is before Bradley became Chelsea Manning, right? Or a Julian Assange, because he feels like, and like you said, whistleblowers. These are the people that try to show that this is what's being done in our name by our governments, essentially, because it's whistleblowers and it's people power that basically freed the Guilford Four. And it's really tragic, honestly. There are people that have been found guilty of crimes that they never committed, but because of whistleblowers, they get exonerated. And some of these whistleblowers, like there are police that are actually like whistleblowing on corruption, because let's be honest, people complain about the FBI. Let's focus on police officers that are corrupt. Police officers that basically, like there's a story about a DoorDash driver or something like that, or an Uber driver, who got the shit beat out of him by cops, and cops were smiling about it, right? Like there was a cop that was actually...
Was this in Memphis?
No, it was in Colorado, actually. And the driver was a U.S. Army veteran, too, but he was homeless, and this was his means of income, essentially, right? And you got cops that are smiling about this thing, but the thing is, those cops would be more pissed off about a whistleblower than they would about the fact that they got some fucked up cops over there. I mean, I'm not anti-cop for the matter. I am anti-bad cop. I want police officers to be good. I want them to be the example. I want them to be trusted by the populace. If they are willing to throw a whistleblower under the bus, what else are they willing to sweep under the rug? These are the things that I worry about.
The entire point of the Justice Project is to help people who have been falsely imprisoned to not it's like there's a lot of statistics about police and how unreliable they are when they're basically doing reports of their testifying. Like even if you look at the reports like of the George Floyd, if you look at the actual written report for it versus what happened on the video, it's like unbelievable that they thought they were going to get away with that type of shit. But yeah, whistleblowing on all levels is because the thing with it is as long, even if you blow the whistle, if there's no systemic change to solve whatever the problem is, it's kind of just like irrelevant. Like if you like for those cops, like if you blow the whistle on that and all that happens is the whistleblower gets fired, like that's the wrong outcome. Like there has to be some type of change with it. So yeah, it's important to have it across the board, but you have to follow it up with some type of change to make it better.
100%. And when I look at situations like Edward Snowden, right, I don't feel like he really exposed anything that we didn't already know about. It's just he brought
This was the NSA spying, right? That was his thing.
Yeah. They made a movie about him. It was the guy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but like they made a movie about him. But
Cumberbatch, I think, was the actor.
I can't remember. He was in Third Rock from the Sun and stuff like that. So, but like I just don't think that he really exposed anything that we didn't already know about. It's just he brought it more to light. But you know what's interesting is, like, you brought up John Oliver earlier, right? John Oliver actually went to Russia and said, "Do you think the people remember you?" And he's like, "I think they would." he actually went around and they actually did a survey, and a lot of people had no idea who Edward Snowden was. And he was like, wow, I made no difference whatsoever. But I sometimes wonder, it's just because, like, these are issues that people don't really give a shit about. And sometimes that could be actually be kind of concerning, because when people realize that, especially like where we're at right now, you and I are both on the internet right now. We're talking about things, right? Everything that we say, there are people probably watching this that aren't doing this because they enjoy the content. It's because they're trying to just like evaluating, hey, where's this person's political allegiances are at, essentially, right? It's not because like they actually care about the content. It's just because, okay, so what's this person saying? Now, I'm not saying that like I'm worried of I'm not in any danger or anything like that, because, you know, as far as I know, I got a clean, spotless record, you know? But like, it can be a little jarring to find out that, you know, your own government is just like, we're doing this for your protection, when it kind of makes you wonder, how much protecting are you actually doing, you know? I mean, that kind of begs the question, doesn't it? Or like, kind of makes you wonder, it's like, are they really protecting us? Or is it just like, you know, I look at it like this. If you can justify doing it to one group of people, you can justify doing it to anybody, especially for the sake of national security.
Yeah. No, like the overreach of the state is always a problem. That's why when you have to have reforms in place, or be able to reform systems like that has to be the secondary part. Like, on top of recognizing a problem, you have to create some type of way to reform it. Like, if you're doing like for police, you have like civilian boards that recognize and be able to remove officers, or they're able to, there's a can't wait, like programs that would help lower police violence. But for like, yeah, the state, like the Patriot Act shouldn't be a thing.
Shouldn't.
Like there's obvious like issues with like policies like that and how you deal with that. Like some type of oversight. Like what the TikTok thing is a good example as well. Like they're like, oh yeah, China can't steal our data. It was like, okay, but like every other program is stealing your data. Like, I know Cypher talks about this. Like, if you want to talk about like dealing with stealing data, you have to deal with the problem, not the one individual lab. Like Facebook does it all the time. I'm sure X does it all the time, but I don't know how effective they are, because it's like barely a functioning website. Like, there's just so many different ways to deal with that problem if you're worried about that problem.
TikTok is nothing but a scapegoat, honestly. It's just like, it's because it's one of the most popular platforms out there, and people are picking on it for the wrong damn reasons, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's like anytime they would get mad at TikTok, they're like, oh yeah, the Osama led into America. It's like, first off, that's readily available, and second off, like you go on fucking X and you can find like child porn and Nazis in like 10 minutes. Like, Elon Musk is about to introduce like, this is not even like an exaggeration. There was one of these like massive pro-Israel accounts that just got banned, and it was because it posted like live of a Palestinian kid being sodomized. And Elon Musk was like, yeah, we're reviewing it. They'll be back soon. He did the same thing with fucking Dom Luca like 6 months ago, where he was like, yeah, he had like child porn, and he posted it, and I've personally seen it, and I'm going to let him back on. Like there's plenty of issues with all of the internet sites. They're all just like collapsing on themselves at this point.
Yep.
And I don't know the extent of it, but like, yeah, if you're going to whistleblow, you need to then take whatever the whistleblown thing is seriously and create effective measures to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think that it has to be handled on a case-by-case basis. It shouldn't just be like a blanket issue. Because
you can't blanket issue them, because every case is going to be different.
Exactly.
Unless they're whistleblowing over the same fucking thing that keeps happening,
yeah.
In which case you're not effectively solving it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's important for us to like mankind, for some reason, is just like we tend to not like kind of see it through. We just kind of like, oh, well, this has got to be obviously an important issue, so let's just make a blanket decision on it. No, you have to take it all case by case, essentially.
Yeah, it's basically out of sight, out of mind. Like, we pretend COVID's not a thing anymore, and that's not even a little bit true. Like that's still just going up. But we're like, yeah, it's not a deal. Let's just ban masks forever. Let's not worry about rolling out whatever version of the vaccine's updated. Now, I think I got 4 of them. I don't remember if I got a 5th. Like, That
Nothing
should
wrong with
really be like a flu shot, where every year you get whatever the new variant, the new updated variant is for the
100%.
vaccine, like that type of shit. And they have to like prepare for whatever the long COVID issues are. And this is not to say that like the vaccine's going to mutate in something, but like if you had chicken pox when you're like 11 or a kid, when you're in your 50s, you got to worry about shingles from that. Like, we don't know what COVID's going to do to people in 50 years.
Exactly.
Like, that's the type of shit we got to be ready for. And,
yeah,
we don't, because it's out of sight, out of mind.
100%. I agree. So you want to go ahead and, I think we've pretty much killed this issue, essentially. You want to go ahead and talk about the issue you want to talk about? I think it was like about assaults on trans people or something like that?
Yes. So, this is kind of a little bit more niche, but it comes back to the migrant crime thing. So as we know, Alex Jones is rightfully going broke because he basically was a stochastic terrorist, and he took the tragedy that was Sandy Hook, and he riled up his fans so much that they harassed the parents of the kids who died. They tried to kill them. I think in a couple cases they had to move in a whole bunch of places. So like the idea that's like to understand stochastic terrorism, it's a concept that's been around for 20 years. Like, this is not a new concept. It's basically you're inciting violence through like expressive words, and like they're coming after your kids. They're like you basically riling up other people to do violence or harass another group without directly saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's currently a group of people doing that now. It's very relevant. And this also comes back to Breitbart. So Breitbart is a right-wing news organization. They used to have a section called Black Crime. And all it was just any black person who did a crime, they would cover it. To make it seem like black people were more violent, black people were more predisposed to crime, whatever their flavor of the week was.
1350.
Yeah, the 1350 type shit.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I blocked enough of these people or they've like gone away. But there was a moment very recently after Elon took over where all these fucking like racist ass accounts would just show black people doing shit and be like, we cannot live with them.
They're still there.
Like, I haven't seen one in a while.
I see them all the time.
Okay. I don't know what maybe I've blocked enough of them, but that's not the point.
You probably have.
The point I'm ultimately making is there's going to be another segment of these things. And this folds into 2 points. They're doing the same thing with migrant and trans crime. This Biden, Trump talked about it. I call it Biden migrant crime. Now, we discussed this case a little bit when you were talking about the migrant who did. Laken Riley is the one that they use most often. Like, what they're doing is they're taking people who are outliers, because they are. By every statistical measure, migrants are less violent than regular Americans. Mm-hmm. And they're basically using it to paint every single migrant.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with this is this leads to violence. We've already seen it. In like multiple occasions, the El Paso shooting. There was another shooting where they did this, but it has spread beyond just like that. It has spread to right-wing influencers are basically stoking this type of hate, and the people who are most responsible for the case that I really do believe should lead to an Alex Jones type lawsuit is the Boston Children's Hospital. So what happened is, as the trans panic was kicking up, Jessiah, who lives at TikTok, basically called the Boston Children's Hospital, and they spoke to somebody about basically transitioning for a kid, and twisted what they said and misrepresented it. And then Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro got involved in this as well. Well, what happened was a whole bunch of people started sending bomb threats to the Boston Children's Hospital. They were harassing the doctors. They were sending them a whole bunch of, and somebody got arrested for it. This was a person who was directly following Matt Walsh. This person then just got sentenced, and part of their lawyer's argument is, yeah, people like they directly named Jessiah as one of the people who influenced me to do this. Now you'll say, oh, that's a one-off. You know, the media is just hyping this up because all we're doing is revealing the transing of kids, the mutilation of children. But that's not it, because if you follow, like, if you, I don't know how many of the there's a couple of like trans reporters, Aaron Reed, and then the one at Medium Air, Ari something, I think, I don't really remember her name, who follow this stuff. who follow Chaya because she is a direct threat to them, because she is. Besides being, and this is true, like if you see Chaya Rachik talk to anybody, like ever, like just talk to a person about her idea, she's fucking moron.
She's hostile as hell too.
She is very dumb,
Mm-hmm.
but she has been part of, or can be tied to, her getting mad at a place for having a trans flag or a gay flag or making something up. With, I know last September it was 20 plus schools that had bomb threats after she got mad at it. This is not counting when Riley Gaines has done it to libraries that like did the trans or
the books,
ragtime story hour, yeah, like that. They do this to all these types of places. The biggest one also is last year during Pride. Pride is always when they really ramp their shit up because they do this, is Bud Light and Target. So after they literally, one of these crazy ass people lied about what was going on at Target, Target started getting bomb threats, and their employees got harassed. And then the same thing happened with Bud Light. Like, this is a thing that needs to be pointed out for more than just like the random hostility, because at some point they're going to get, some of these people are going to go off. Mm-hmm. And we're going to end up with either like an actual bombing at God, who the fuck knows where, one of these schools or something like this, or somebody's going to get shot. And it is directly tied to these people inciting violence. It's directly tied to Chaya Rachik. It's directly tied to Ben Shapiro. It's directly tied to Matt Walsh. And they're always going to claim, oh, I never said anything. But it's so clearly an incitement of violence. It's so clearly a stochastic error, which, to be fair, she doesn't know is a real thing. And if you actually go look at her Twitter avatar, not the Libs of TikTok, the Chaya Rachik one, it's her gleefully holding up a newspaper that wrote an article about this terror wave that they've unleashed. Like, what they're doing and the broader context of the migrant crime is just an extension of Breitbart's black crime. They're basically taking a small group of people and they're trying to make them all as a whole. Like, this is why we saw the Nashville shooter, like the one trans person who did an actual crime. This is why they blame everybody to be trans. They called the David DePepe, they called him gay. They tried to do it with every shooter. They're like, oh, this person's trans, and that's just not true. They're just going to do more violence. And I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer, how long it takes for somebody to bring some of these fucking cases. Because, like, I know Vice has done a bunch of articles on her. I think USA Today was the one that she has up. There's a whole trail of just, like, violence that has followed these people. And I don't know how long it would take for somebody to bring some type of like Alex Jones style lawsuit against, like, God, I fucking hope they do it to the Daily Wire. Because first of all, they're boring. Like, they just are. Like, if you watch Ben Shapiro like a couple years ago, he was like interesting and you could like critique him. He is nothing interesting. They have Matt Walsh, who's not interesting or intelligent. They got Michael Walsh, who nobody gives a shit. Their movies and stuff are terrible. They just let Candace Owens go, who's like a fucking Nazi. Like, it's just hate, and it needs to be removed. Like, and this is not to say, oh, people I disagree with, shouldn't exist. But yeah, if your whole platform is hate, like, you should be treated the same way Alex Jones is considered a lunatic, the same way Nick Fuentes is, because these are violent people who just want to do violence on people who don't fit their definition of normal or white Christian or Jewish or whatever Ben Shapiro's not mad at this week, which, to be fair, he falls into like every ism except anti-Semitism, and that's only kind of because he's okay with anti-Semitism as long as you say Israel good. So like, it's not like but he's every single one of these isms, and I really think somebody needs to bring one of these lawsuits against these people before they kill somebody.
So, looking into the Nashville shooter, when you have the family members, like, because you got Matt Walsh and people like that saying, hey, why haven't they released the manifesto? There's a reason for that. It's because the families have said, listen, we don't want this manifesto released. We don't want to give this person any credibility whatsoever. And I respect that. I respect the fact that they don't want this, because the reason why we see so many shooters nowadays is because they see that a shooter will do something and will focus on the issue and then we'll just kind of ignore it. Nobody's going to do a fucking thing about it. And I like the fact that they are not giving any credibility to this person whatsoever, because you're going to have some nutcase.
They got the manifesto. I think they got it.
They didn't release it, though. They didn't release it to the public.
It was like Steven Crowder got it, and then some of it came out.
Yeah, little bits and pieces of it, but that's just because he focused on the issues, because Steven Crowder's a fucking joke. Let's be honest. That guy's a fucking clown. But, like, he only focused on the issues that he knew was going to get him the most clicks. That's all he gives a shit about, is the clicks. He doesn't give a shit about the fucking families that lost their children and the people that lost their family members. They don't give a shit about that. It's that.
Yeah, because their solution is just no more trans people.
Yeah, that's their solution. They're just saying, oh, it's a mental health issue, but yet our Republican friends don't want to vote upon mental health issues because they think it's an infringement from the government, essentially, which is a crock of shit.
And they don't believe in therapy.
They don't believe in therapy. People that say they don't believe in therapy, they're full of shit. They need to go to therapy, honestly. Because I've been in goddamn therapy, and I feel a lot better because of it. But, okay, so when it comes down to the trans issues, okay, there are always going to be outliers of trans people that are just fucking lunatics. But there are straight people that are lunatics, too, okay? I'm just be honest about that.
There's a lot more of them.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of them, too, absolutely. The trans people that I know are normal people that just want to live their lives. It's just because like there are people that I've served with that are trans, and they've had the surgeries and whatnot. They've had the bottom surgery, and they feel so much better about themselves. They actually feel like they can actually be themselves for the first times in their life. And you know, here's the amazing thing: you bring up the fact that Pride Month is one where people just flip the fuck out. And they say, "What about our military? Where is their month?" That was in May. May is Military Appreciation Month. And here's what I find most fascinating, okay? In the same year, not even a month apart, you'll find out somebody served their country, right? Thank you for your service. We love the fact that you served our country. And in the next month, hey, there's something wrong with you. You're not a trans, you're not a woman, you're a fucking dude, you're you know, just, they're going to say, they're going to say these things because they feel they have a right to do so. Not even a month later, you're going to basically tell somebody, thank you for your service, but you're a fucking freak. That's exactly the same way that they're going to be taking it. And that is bullshit. Because there are people in this country that are trans. Not everybody that's trans is out here. They're not going to come out and groom your children. But of course, I know people are going to reference the San Francisco Choir. People don't realize that was a troll of the highest. It was
satire.
It was satire.
Yeah, that was.
People don't realize that, though. But people took that literally.
Every trans person is not going to transition. Like there are people who like transition and it's not for them.
Mm-hmm.
But like the ones that they trot out, there's like 6 of them, and they're the same ones that they do all the time.
Yeah,
like it is a mental health issue,
mm-hmm.
but you have to treat it as like
depression, anxiety, PTSD,
medicine for that. Maybe they need to go to have surgeries, but they're like the idea that like, yeah, you know what? I'm bored as a male, so I'm going to transition to a female, and I'm going to go win women's soccer. Like, pros can you like? If this was such a big thing, like, how many pros are there that you could? How many college athletes? It's like 3 of them. Like they did, like these states that have college, the trans bands don't have trans kids in them,
mm-hmm.
like playing the sports. There's, I think in the country, I think it's like 43 kids are registered as like trans athletes. That's less than 1 per state. Like I think it was in Utah where they did it, and it was like 1 kid. Like I don't know if I'm that kid, if I feel happy or like upset. Like they made a law specifically because of me, but it was to fuck me over. Like for that 1 kid, like I'm that 1 kid that they got so upset about. They're just cruel fucking monsters. And honestly, I'm happy most of the trans panic has successfully died down in the way that like it's not their first thing, because arguing with these motherfuckers is so goddamn boring because they're so fucking stupid and they say the same goddamn shit all the time and they're wrong, and it's just it was so boring. Like I don't want to have like I know it's a real fucked up way to say it was boring, but like they're just wrong in the same way they're wrong about gay people. Like it's the same goddamn debate, and there has to be consequences for the people who are pushing this type of hate, and hopefully there will be at some point.
And, you know, I talked about this last week with my last guest, Rashad Crenshaw. We talked about, like, for example, you know, trans women being banned from the Olympics. Now, I feel it has to be dealt on a case-by-case basis, and I did say that, like, you know, if they meet the criteria, then yes, they should be allowed to compete. Now, I understand why some people might feel it's a little unfair. I understand that, but it's easy for me to say because I'm not competing at that point. But if they meet the criteria, then fine. But the fact of the matter is, like, if you got, like, Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas, or I think that's the name, I don't think
Leah Thomas is the swimmer, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if...
Riley Gaines was the sprinter.
Yeah.
She came in 8th in a race, and there was 2 of them were trans people.
But,
so she would have come in 6th.
Yeah.
And they didn't even win the event when they went to the next level.
Yeah. But, like, you know, I can disagree with Riley Gaines. I don't think she's, like, this horrible. I just disagree with her vehemently. But, like, Leah Thomas, I don't know if she was being malicious. There was one point where I thought, I don't know if I couldn't prove that Leah Thomas was being... Yeah, but, like, the thing is, like, I understand why people might feel that way. They feel like they might that Leah Thomas maybe took a slot, and I understand the concern behind that. But again, I can't prove whether Leah Thomas is being malicious. I don't think so, because I can't wake up tomorrow and say, hey, listen, I'm going to go try out for the WNBA and I'm going to get a spot on there. No, it doesn't work like that. And I know Pierce Morgan has tried to say, well, LeBron James could wake up tomorrow and be trans and go play the WNBA. It doesn't work like that, okay? There's certain criteria you have to make, essentially, in order to compete that level.
Also, LeBron James is like one of the 3 best NBA players of all time. So of course, he's going to fucking dominate the NBA, the WNBA. He dominated the NBA for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. But that's my point, though. Is just like it doesn't work like that. Now, are there some people that like it might seem a bit sketchy? Like I think in the University of Oregon, there was a person that's a trans woman that just like competed and just smoked the fucking dog shit out of everybody else. I don't know enough about that story, but I'm not. But the thing is, those outliers are not the norm. And I think that people need to understand that. And if people say, I'm worried about a trans, like about a dude in a skirt coming in, okay, listen, that is a person that's a predator, flat out, okay? We have to be mature to have these conversations and say, listen, we have to differentiate between, because trans people have been using bathrooms, you know, for a gender they feel like for decades. But it was only in 2015 when people started making a big deal about this. Now, if you're worried... I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to start checking people's chromosomes when they come? Hey, listen, what's your chromosome level? Are you XY or XX? Well, first off, it's none of your fucking business, okay? Let alone the fact that, like, people that are trans are not on the prowl for children. That's not their fucking modus operandi, okay? They just want to be looked at as normal. They just want to live their lives like anybody else. But people want to just alienate them and treat them like they're monsters. They're not. If you're saying, oh, well, this trans person over here. Okay, yeah, that person's a fucking predator then. It's that simple. Focus on the fucking heterosexual cisgender people that are predators too then. Please. Don't be fucking inconsistent.
That's the other thing. Like, the idea, like, this was an argument in the beginning because it was so obvious that they like didn't care. Was like, okay, well, you don't like drag queen story hour. You ever heard of a child beauty pageant?
Yeah.
Like literally, I mean, obviously nobody makes that argument anymore.
Yeah.
Because like it was such an obvious argument that they just ignored, and they ignore all the priests, they ignore all the Republicans, they ignore the fact that Trump's spiritual leader just got arrested for that type of shit. Like they don't care. They just don't, and it's not. They just want to harm trans people. They just want to harm gay people. They want to harm migrants. And I'm gonna be totally honest. I think if one of these fucking lunatics shoots up like one of these like places where they're holding the migrants because we don't have like proper ways to deal with them, that's not going to lead to anything. Like it's not going to lead to a punishment for the people who are inciting this. It's going to what is going to happen is going to be harsh punishment to the migrants. Like if but like God forbid they do it to a school. I mean, if they did it to a school where there was like a trans kid or something, and it came out they did it because the person was trans, like it would just be another school shooting in America. Like there wouldn't be anything. But hopefully they somebody can get a hold of these people, like to bring some type of lawsuit before it gets to that point. That's my, and I wanted to bring this up because it's just it all the trans crime and the migrant crime and the black crime, it all rolls into the same thing. They're just trying to paint minorities in the broadest, most unflattering type of brush in order to incite violence on them, or to bring, if it's not vigilante violence, they want to bring down the violence of the state on them.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important for us to like actually. Every situation has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. I'm a firm believer in that. But we don't do that because people focus on what? They focus on what issue is going to sell the most with the newspapers, what's going to get the most clicks with their articles. That's what it is. And that's where we're sitting at in this society. It's not because they actually really give a shit. It's just because, like, when people tend to say, oh, well, you know, the majority of shootings happen are white males. Okay, yeah, that might be the case. But I try to look at, okay, why did the shooting happen? There's got to be a reason behind that. Just sort of like, for example, not every shooting that happens is a result of ideology. It's not a result of terrorism. It's just a kid that just fucking snapped and said, I don't give a shit anymore. Or you might have another kid that might commit a school shooting because my brother got picked on and therefore this is my answer to the solution. I'm not saying I condone that, but there's like every situation has to be taken in on a case-by-case basis because and if there's a pattern, then yes, fix the pattern. But when people just say, oh, well, trans people are the issue here, they're not. They are not the issue. And I will die on this fucking hill as long as I can. Because, you know, I look at trans people as like a normal person. Because
they are normal.
They are.
They are.
Exactly. It's just like, and I brought this up, right? It's like, if you wake up tomorrow, right? And I think Destiny used this in the hypothetical scenario of Rob Noor. And I like this hypothetical. If you wake up tomorrow and you're in a woman's body, and you're like, no, I feel like a dude, what would be the solution? You know, obviously, make yourself like, you know, become a guy kind of basically, because you feel that's where you truly do belong. That's how it actually is. It's not so, and you know, and let's be honest. Like, if people say, "Oh, well, you know, that they're just trying to replace women," no, they're not trying to replace women. Okay, that's not the case. It's just because, like, a person, like, for years feels like they actually are, like, let's say, for example, a guy that was somebody that was born a guy, and for years they just felt like there was something just not right with them, and they always felt like they're more in touch with their feminine self kind of deal. And then they finally realize, I just feel like I can be myself as a woman. And then once they actually transition, and I know people can make the argument, oh, well, you know, they commit. Well, there's a reason why. It's because, for example, and I've talked with trans people about this. When they get the bottom surgery, the doctor might fuck it up because then they lose all feeling down there. Now, I don't know about you, but that would fuck me up. Like, if I lost all feeling down in my groin region, essentially, that would fuck me up, essentially. Yeah. And for somebody that, like, that could drastically change their outlook on life, essentially. And that's something we have got to be realistic about. Now, when it comes down to the issue about, like, whether, you know, the reason why gender-affirming care is so essential, it's because it's just because they go there, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, well, you know, if you feel like a guy or if you feel like you're a girl, then guess what? We're going to sign you for surgery tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. There's a process. It's a very long process. That's why it's important to have therapy, have these, but because people just go with the first reaction, which is like their feelings, essentially, that's where they make their decision. And that's where libs of TikToks, it's people like this, they fester, you know, it's like a disease, essentially. They start off somewhere and then they just spread. I mean, it's all hyperbolic bullshit.
And she doesn't do things like, oh, she's just posting TikToks. It's like, that's not what she's doing. She's misleading what's in the TikTok. And also, like, to the idea that this is not dangerous. There was just that leak from England where, like, trans suicides up like a massive, I think it's like 16% that they were covering up because they basically got rid of trans care in England. And it was like they just didn't want to report on it because it was so obvious that what they did, which, you know, I think the right thing for them to do is to then pick a fight with David Tennant about it because, you know, he's not like one of the most popular people in the fucking world who, like, you should pick a fight with is like David Tennant over trans rights and shit. Like,
love David Tennant. That's my dude right there.
Yeah,
I love David Tennant.
So I mean, they are cruel. They are more often than not, they're fucking dumb. I do think it is very funny that there was this like thing very recently about like these right wing influencers, like, yeah, we're just gonna outbreed the left, and one of them was Chaya Raichik, who I don't know how much of her personal life you know. She was engaged, and then they broke off their engagement because basically she's too crazy. Like, she was at January 6th. Like, she's actually a lunatic. And her engagement fell apart because she's a lunatic. So she's out here like, yeah, I'm going to outbreed the left. I was like, bitch, you're single. Like, you're like fucking, you're like the terrorist version of Pearly Things. Like, you're like, that's basically what you are. You're just a sad, lonely little lunatic who found a niche in order to make money, and you're going to milk it for all it's worth.
100%. I think she's an opportunist, sort of like Julian Assange, an opportunist. They go, and I understand it. Like, I know I don't have a great following, but the thing is, though, I stick to my guns on these issues, and I'm not going to fucking back down from this shit. But it's just...
It's so much easier to make money on the right. Like,
it really is.
It's
really
like
is.
Just having morals makes you like incompatible with the right.
It really does. But of course, we're the degenerates according to them. We're the ones that think like, and when people say, "Oh, so you think it's possible for men to have children?" Okay, first things first. Okay, let's understand something. Trans men can't have children. Me, I can't have one because I don't have the framework. I don't have the plumbing down there. But trans men, however, do have it down there. They like, especially if they don't have like the full on surgery, it doesn't make them any less, because like it's all. And I think like when people say, "Oh, so what is a woman?" Okay, because I think I've heard and read different definitions, but the best one that says a person that society determines as somebody that is female, essentially. I mean, I know it's kind of like a weak definition because
there's no definition for women that doesn't leave out some women.
Exactly.
An exclusionary definition. Like it just doesn't exist. Like the most common definition that they use leaves out women who have like extra chromosomes, or like they're like, oh, a woman who could have a baby. It's like, okay, so everyone who has menopause isn't a woman.
Yeah, like a woman born without a uterus isn't a woman. A woman that is incapable of having children is not a woman. I mean, this is like, they don't take that into consideration. Oh, yeah, that is a woman. Okay, so what is a woman then, essentially? And, it's just like, they're going to go for the most extreme version, and that's where you kind of have to, like, kind of bounce back at that. It's like, okay, so what's your definition? What's a man? What makes somebody masculine? I mean, there's masculine women out there. There's feminine men out there, essentially. I mean, it's like, if you want to go down that route, I mean, we could do that all fucking day, essentially. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because, like, what does matter is the fact that, I agree with you 100%. There are people out there, and, when it comes on the topic of, like, libraries and, like, books like Genderqueer, there are librarians at this point that are being threatened on a day-to-day basis because of books. There are people out there that want books banned at libraries that are not even at the goddamn library, for Christ's sake. But it's because people that don't do research, they are told this is an issue you should be worried about, even though it's not that big of a fucking deal, honestly. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you're that concerned about a book, then you need to do your job as a parent and explain the birds and the bees. You need to explain these books. And if you don't understand, you can always find somebody that can explain it for you, essentially. But they don't want to do that. They just want to find somebody else to blame, essentially. But that person lives with TikTok. I find her a disgusting individual, an opportunist. And I just wonder, I hope it doesn't ever get to that point. But if somebody dies because of her, then yes, there should definitely be a lawsuit brought to her, because she is basically bringing this in the pond. And I would say the same thing about, like, if, Joe Liberal over here says things about, like, a famous conservative content creator, and then that person gets attacked, and they says, well, it's because I listen to this guy. I'm all about it. Same standards apply.
Right, right. But we have to imply that, like, these things are not equal. Like,
exactly.
The way that you and I would talk about somebody, or even just like a group, like when we talk about Republicans, it's not like, yeah, they're all pedophiles and everyone should, like, keep them away from their children, and we should just, like, remove them all from society, or they're coming from their kids. Like, there's a lack of violent response in rhetoric from the left. Like, it just exists. Like, there are, like, you can call like Republicans like unintelligent animals.
Sure.
That's relatively true.
You can be critical, absolutely.
Right. But, like, it's a different type of incitement that they're engaged in.
I 100% agree. So, anyway, I think we should just go and wrap up. Hey, dude, I appreciate you coming back on here, and I always appreciate conversations like this. I mean, they're always very, very stimulating. You know, it's just like, it's kind of good to get this stuff, like, you know, off our chest, you know. I mean, and I hope you enjoyed yourself here as well.
I enjoyed it. I honestly wish I had more to drink because I'm going to need to throw launches after this one. It's been a while since I've done it this long.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and plus, like, with all the beer, you know, I got to use the bathroom here shortly. So,
Same, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, before you go, just let everybody know where they can find you and like what dates and times, like whenever you go on the other podcast and whatnot, and I'll be sure to check that out. You know.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Faces Ideas New. You can find me on the Productive Conversations. It's on. They have a link tree. They have a Spotify. They have an Instagram. They have a Twitter. It's just under Productive Conversations. You can find me on. Jesus, I forgot the name again. I said it earlier. It was a
Center or Center Left, like
Center Left Radio.
Yeah.
It's literally just Google Center Left Radio. It's got a whole bunch of podcasts. I go on that on Fridays for about 15 minutes. I haven't looked at the website in a while, so I'm not entirely sure how you would. He posts them. I don't know if he's updated them better.
Okay.
I don't know how the shoutcast and stuff, but that's usually where you can find me. I'm usually on Twitter. The Productive Conversation stuff I'm doing Tuesday. So I think that one will come out Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not entirely sure where the schedule posts. He usually tags me in it, and I repost it on Twitter. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right, man.
I'm on TikTok, but I don't make any TikToks,
Yeah.
so I don't know if anyone cares about that.
Yeah, I sometimes do TikToks here and there, but not very many. So, but hey, dude, I definitely appreciate you coming on here. I've always enjoyed conversations like this, and I hope to talk to you again some other time. And for everybody else out there, be sure to catch me next weekend, because next weekend it'll be my last show for about a couple weeks, because then I got a lot of stuff going on the next couple weeks after that. But hey, listen, if you watch this, if you like this, go to my YouTube channel, my Twitch channel, or go to my X, give me a like, share, follow, do what you got to do, because I see people in the audience. Please give me a like, share, leave a comment, get these algorithms going, because I need this platform to get built up. Anyway, Fresh, thank you so much for coming on again, and I appreciate y'all. Everybody have a great weekend. Y'all take care of yourselves now. Take care.